Good evening, guys. It's your boy, Mr. Paranormal M, back at it again. Quick update. The bee sting drama is finally over. It's gone down a lot, so I'm not suffering anymore. Comment where you're watching from and tell me what it's like over there. Hot, cold, raining, spooky fog. I want to know it all. Every night around this time, I get that little spark of excitement because I love grabbing the mic, hanging out with you, and sharing creepy, supernatural stories from all over the place. And honestly, it makes me really happy knowing you're cozy, relaxed, maybe lying in bed or on the couch, just vibing and listening to my voice. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our spooky storytime sessions. All right, I'll stop teasing you about tonight's stories. Grab your blanket, get comfy, maybe dim the lights a little, and let's get started. So, let me tell you this story the way it was told to me. Like we're just sitting together after a long shift. I used to work in this old department store, 4 floors high. The kind of place where the lights always felt a bit too dim and the air conditioning never quite worked right. Everyone on staff knew one thing. You didn't like being alone on the 3rd floor. That's where it was. We called it the shapeshifter, though nobody ever agreed on what it really was. All we knew was that it loved copying people. You'd be doing inventory, glance down an aisle, and swear you saw a coworker who wasn't scheduled that day just standing there. Then you'd check the roster and realize, nope, they were off or home sick. It was this creepy, quiet game it played with us. When our new supervisor, Marco, joined the store, we warned him right away. You know how it is with new people. You don't know if they'll laugh it off or take you seriously. At first, he thought we were pulling his leg. He'd just grin and say something like, "Yeah, sure, a copycat ghost. Very funny." But a few weeks in, he stopped laughing. One night, we were closing late after a busy sale. Most of the lights on the 3rd floor were already off, just a few still on near the office where Marco was finishing some reports. I was downstairs doing a final check on the registers when he had his encounter. Later, he told us exactly what happened. He was sitting at his desk, exhausted, shoulders killing him, surrounded by piles of paperwork and a bunch of random office stuff. Staplers, pricing guns, barcode scanners, a small receipt printer, all crammed onto the table. You know that kind of tired where even the ticking of a clock feels too loud? That was him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw someone standing in the doorway. It looked like Lena, one of our part-timers. Same ponytail, same uniform, same way she stood with her arms folded. She didn't say anything. She just stood there, perfectly still. Marco glanced at the clock and frowned because he knew Lena had called in sick that day. But he was so drained, he didn't even question it at first. He just said, without looking up, "What are you doing here? Go home. Your shift ended hours ago." No answer. When he finally looked properly, the figure turned just a little, like it was acknowledging him, and then started walking slowly toward the far corner of the office area. He said that's when something in his stomach dropped. The walk was wrong. Too slow, too smooth, like it wasn't really walking, just gliding. Then it happened. Right as the figure reached the corner, every loose thing on his desk, the stack of folders, a cup full of pens, the staplers, even the little printer, all of it shoved forward and crashed onto the floor. Not like something got knocked by accident, but like an invisible hand had just swept across the desk in one angry motion. The noise echoed across the whole floor. Marco jumped up, heart racing, and for a second, he was actually scared. But then it hit him. Lena wasn't even in the building. No one else was on that floor. And that's when fear turned into pure, fed-up anger. He told us, I'd had it. I was tired, behind on my reports, and I wasn't about to let some, whatever it was, push me around. So he reached for the thick store ledger. this heavy, old record book we kept for manual entries, and without overthinking, he hurled it straight at the figure. He said it hit with a solid thud, like it hit a real body. Then Marco just exploded. He started shouting, every curse he could think of, voice echoing through the floor. "You picked the wrong time to mess with me," he yelled. "I'm not scared of you. You want to throw things around? Try me." He wasn't trying to be brave. He was just done. Done with being creeped out. Done with the stories. Done with feeling watched while he worked late. As he stormed toward it, the figure slowly backed away into that same corner. Step by step, it got dimmer, like it was fading out of focus. And then, right before it reached the wall, it just vanished. No dramatic noise, no puff of smoke. It was there, and then it wasn't. Marco stood there, breathing hard, heart pounding, hands still shaking from the adrenaline. But instead of running, he did something that still makes me laugh a little when I think about it. He pointed at the empty corner and said, very clearly, "Listen, if you try that again, if you so much as move a paper on my desk, I swear I'll find a way to get rid of you for good. Do you understand me?" And then he just went back to his chair, picked everything up off the floor, straightened his papers, and finished his report like it was any other night. Here's the strange part. After that, the story stopped. No more glimpses of co-workers who weren't on shift. No more figures at the end of the aisle. No more weird footsteps on the third floor after closing. It was like, after that night, the whole floor went quiet. Every now and then, when we stayed late, someone would joke, "Hey, maybe Marco scared it off." And honestly, I kind of think he did. So now I can't help wondering, and I'm genuinely curious about you here. Have you ever had something weird, something you couldn't explain, try to scare you or mess with you? And instead of getting terrified, you just got angry and stood your ground? Or do you know someone who reacted like that? Because after hearing Marco's story, I started to think, maybe sometimes the thing on the third floor just needs to be told it picked the wrong person to bother. So, let me tell you about a couple of stories that still give me chills whenever I think about working in retail at night. The first one is about my friend Marco. He used to work the late shift at this small convenience store tucked at the corner of a busy intersection. You know the kind, bright at the front, humming refrigerators, but once you go past the shelves and into the back, it suddenly feels too quiet. Behind the store, there was a narrow hallway that led to the stockroom and a tiny break room. The staff all said that area was haunted. Years before Marco started, an employee had apparently died in his sleep during a graveyard shift. They found him early in the morning, still in his uniform, slumped on one of the old couches in the break room. People said he never really left. Marco told me that sometimes, when he went to get extra boxes of drinks, he'd see someone standing at the far end of the stockroom. At first, he'd think it was another employee. Same green uniform vest, same cap. But when he looked up properly, the face would be wrong. Either blurred out, like someone smeared it in a photo, or just strangely empty. No eyes, no mouth. Just the outline of a person who wasn't supposed to be there. The manager, a woman named Ms. Reyes, was really devout and decided to set up this small altar just outside the break room door. There were candles, saint images, fresh flowers every Monday, and even a cup of black coffee some mornings, because someone said that's what the man used to drink. The idea was to pray for his soul, ask him to move on, and also to, keep the rest of the staff from quitting. But even with the altar, weird things kept happening. Marco said he'd leave the stockroom lights off when he was up front at the counter, but every now and then, he'd notice this faint glow leaking from under the door. When he went to check, the main light would still be off, but the break room TV, which was never plugged in anymore, would be giving off this dull, bluish flicker. One time he swore he heard someone shuffling around inside, opening plastic wrappers, like someone was having a late snack on break. He only lasted, maybe a month and a half at that job? The last straw was when he walked into the break room and saw someone sitting on the couch, hunched forward. He thought it was one of the new guys and started to say, "Hey, your shift ended already, right?" The figure slowly turned toward him, and there was that same uniform, same nameplate style, but where the face should have been, it was just blank. Like the air was shaped into a head, but nothing was there. Marco said he ran out so fast he didn't even bother clocking out. He called the manager from outside the store and told her he wouldn't be coming back. And honestly, I don't blame him. The second story is from another friend of mine, Anna. She worked at this big, premium bookstore in the city center. It had 4 floors and a mezzanine, plus a basement level that connected to the mall parking. On the surface, it was all bright lights, soft music, and the smell of new books. But the staff all had their own ghost stories. On the ground floor, near the back entrance where deliveries came in, the night guards talked about something they called a replay. They didn't see an actual ghost, like a transparent person floating around. Instead, they would sometimes see a scene unfold for a few seconds, then vanish. Up on the second floor, where the kids and teens section was, things were less violent but somehow creepier. Staff and customers had reported seeing a little girl in a pale yellow dress, wandering alone between the shelves, her hair in short, neat curls. When someone tried to approach her, she'd turn the corner, and then just wouldn't be there anymore. There were also 2 other figures people mentioned, a boy and an older man. The boy always looked like he had just come in from the fields, simple shirt, shorts, bare feet. The old man wore these worn-out farmer-style clothes and a straw hat. The strange part was that they were almost always seen together, walking side by side, like a grandfather and grandson out for a stroll, quietly weaving in and out of the shelves. Sometimes, security would replay the CCTV footage after a customer complained about someone following them. On the screen, they'd see the customer moving through the aisle, glancing back nervously, but no one would be behind them. No boy, no old man, just empty space. The 4th floor was reserved mostly for arts, design, and rare books. That was the one that scared the staff the most. They said there was something up there that liked to copy people. Anna told me about nights during closing time when everyone would be doing last-minute shelving. She'd be straightening up a display and hear footsteps behind her. Then she'd hear a familiar voice, maybe her supervisor or one of her closest coworkers, say her name, casual and normal, like, "Hey Anna, you almost done?" She'd turn around, ready to answer, and the floor would be empty. A few minutes later, she'd bump into the real coworker downstairs and ask, "Did you just call me from the art section?" And the answer was always no. After a while, the staff made it a rule not to answer anyone calling their name on the 4th floor, unless they could actually see the person's face. Because of that, closing routines became almost like a race. As soon as it was time to shut down, they'd switch off the air conditioning up there, dim the lights, and everyone would go down together. No lingering. No, "I'll catch up later." Nobody wanted to be the last one alone on that floor, with something that could mimic their friends' voices. Funny enough, Anna always said the 3rd floor was the safest. That was where the general fiction and literature sections were. She joked that maybe the ghosts there were too busy reading to bother anyone. No major encounters, no strange flickering scenes, just the usual creaks and pops of an old building settling at night. Whenever I hear their stories, I can't help but wonder how many people in retail have their own versions of this. Late night shelves, humming lights, and that feeling that you're not really alone, even when the store is supposed to be closed. And it makes me think, if you've ever worked or known someone who's worked in retail, how many of those just your imagination moments were actually something or someone else? So I always joke that I have more ghost stories than birthday candles. I'm 24 now, but this all started when I was really little. I've pretty much felt haunted for as long as I can remember. One day I might tell you everything, but for now, I'll just stick to a couple of moments that still give me chills when I think about them. Back then, my family and I lived in Nevada, just a regular suburban neighborhood, nothing spooky looking about it at all. We moved into this brand new 2-story house when I was around 8, almost 9. Fresh paint, new carpet, that weird, new house smell. You'd think a place like that would be the last spot to be haunted, right? But honestly, most of the worst stuff I've experienced happened in that house. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't just some random, harmless ghost. It felt darker. I still wonder what the land used to be. Burial ground, battleground, something. I don't know. I just know it didn't feel clean. I'm going to use fake names here, by the way. My family's super split on this stuff. Some of them don't believe in ghosts at all and think it's all devil worship or nonsense. And I don't feel like arguing with anyone at Thanksgiving. So, I'll call my mom Elena, my dad Mark, my middle sister Lena, my little sister Mia, and my cousin Jade. Here's the first weird thing. I had never, ever sleepwalked in my life until we moved into that house. And the strangest part? It only happened when I slept over at other people's houses. Anytime I had a sleepover at a friend's place, the next morning they'd be like, you were totally sleepwalking last night. One friend's mom even complained to my parents once, saying I'd been stomping around their hallway for like an hour while everyone was trying to sleep and that I needed to get it under control. Like I was doing it on purpose. But let me back up and introduce you to what we think was our ghost. Honestly, it felt more like a poltergeist. This thing loved messing with stuff. It would move things around, flicker the lights, and walk around at night when everyone was in bed. And you can think I'm dramatic if you want, but both my mom and my dad saw things too. It wasn't just me. One of its favorite tricks was with our family computer downstairs. My sisters and I used to play The Sims 3 on it all the time. To start the game, you had to turn on the computer, log in, open the launcher, click play, and then wait for it to load. It wasn't something you could just accidentally bump. In the middle of the night, we'd hear that familiar Sims music and all the little sound effects. My mom or dad would get up, burst into our rooms, and check if any of us were missing, assuming someone had snuck downstairs to play after bedtime. But we'd all be in our beds, half asleep and annoyed. They'd go down to turn the computer off, and every single time, they told us the same thing. The game wasn't just on the menu. The Sims were actually moving and doing things, like someone was playing with them. You'd think, okay, maybe it's just a friendly ghost who wants to enjoy some 21st century entertainment. But that was really just the opening act. Now, back to the sleepwalking. One night, my family was hanging out at my aunt's house, and my sisters and I decided to have a sleepover with my cousin Jade. My parents left us there and drove back home with Mia to grab some clothes and stuff for the night. As they pulled into the driveway, my mom noticed a light on upstairs. My mom, Elena, is intense about turning lights off when we leave the house. Like, she'll do a full patrol before we walk out the door. So she looks up and goes, "Why is her bedroom light on?" Meaning my room. And my dad goes, "I don't know. I turned everything off. It definitely wasn't on when we pulled out of the driveway." My mom starts freaking out. My dad hits the garage button, grabs a baseball bat from inside, and goes in to check the entire house. Every room, every closet, the garage. He's on the phone with my mom the whole time. He comes back out and says, "There's nobody in there, and your bedroom light wasn't on. The light that's on is Mia's, on the side of the house. You just couldn't see it clearly from the front." They are both totally unsettled, but they grab our clothes and bring them back to my aunt's. They tell us the whole story, and I remember just sitting there with this uneasy feeling in my stomach. That night, I had one of my usual migraines. Back then, I used to get them almost every day, so I went to bed a little early while everyone else stayed up talking. The next morning, Jade looks at me and goes, "You were sleepwalking last night." Then Lena, my middle sister, backs her up. They tell me what happened. Jade says she got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. When she stepped out into the hallway, she saw me walking in slow circles, through the kitchen, into the hallway, back through the kitchen, like I was following some invisible path. She called my name. I stopped in the kitchen and just stood there, staring at her, not saying anything, just staring. She went to the bathroom, came back out, and I was still standing there, in the same spot, still staring at her. When she got back into bed, she heard me start walking around again. Later, Lena tells me she got up to go to the bathroom too, and saw the exact same thing. Me doing that weird loop through the kitchen and hallway. And I just keep thinking about that timing. The lights freaking my parents out at home, and then me sleepwalking like some glitching NPC the very same night. Maybe it was all a coincidence. Maybe it wasn't. I honestly don't know. But it still makes my skin crawl. Anyway, that was creepy, but it wasn't the worst. There's one night that still makes me feel sick to my stomach even to talk about it. It's the reason I have to sleep with my bedroom door closed now. I had just started 7th grade. It was a weekend, pretty late at night. I was in my room with the door wide open, sitting on my bed, making an edit for Vine on my laptop. Yeah, I was one of those kids. I kept hearing heavy footsteps in the hallway, not like a gentle walk, like stomping. I figured it was Lena or Mia being dramatic, so I ignored it. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom downstairs. "Is that you? Can you please be a little more quiet?" I texted back, "It's not me." And as I'm typing that, I look up and glance across the hall into Mia's room. Her door is kind of diagonal from mine, so I can see into it from where I'm sitting. And I see something. There's a dark figure standing over her bed. You could tell it was facing her, like it was just staring down at her while she slept. It wasn't detailed, more like a solid shadow in the shape of a person. I remember my brain trying to protect me like, "Nope, we're not doing this." So I turn over in my bed and face the wall, pretending I didn't see anything. But of course, I couldn't leave it alone. I look back. Now the figure isn't by her bed anymore. It's leaning against the doorway of her room, like it's bracing one shoulder on the frame. And it's turned toward me. I can't see a face, but I can feel it looking right at me. At that point, my fight or flight just shuts down and does something stupid. I decide to get up, walk into the hallway, and close my door. Like closing a hollow wooden door is going to protect me from whatever that is. The second I shut my door, I hear it. The loudest, heaviest footsteps I have ever heard, pounding down the hallway, right past my room, and then thundering down the stairs. It sounded like something huge and angry running through the house. My mom comes to my room, opens my door, and her eyes are wide. "You heard that too, right?" I just nodded. I could still feel my heart in my throat. And then, while we're all awake, standing there in the hallway, we hear it again. from downstairs. The computer turns on, the familiar startup sounds, then the little chime from the Sims launcher, then the Sims 3 music. All three of us hear it. Normally, one of my parents would go downstairs and shut it off, but that night, my mom just looked at us and said, "We're leaving it. If it wants to play, it can play." So we all went into her room instead and tried to sleep with the Sims music drifting up the stairs, like the ghost was happily building a little digital house while we were curled up in the dark, terrified. Sometimes I try to tell myself I was just freaking myself out. I hadn't been watching scary movies or thinking about anything creepy before that. I was literally just editing a Vine. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw in my sister's doorway. And even now, all these years later, just talking about it gives me chills. Alright, hey. So, my name's Caleb, I'm 14, and I live in this tiny town in Pennsylvania. Like, really tiny. We've got one Family Dollar, one little grocery store, and that's basically it. I'm telling you that because it kinda matters later. So, every weekend my mom, Lisa, goes to her boyfriend Dave's place, and she usually leaves me home alone. Our house is super old, like late 1800s old, and it sounds like it. The floors creak, the pipes complain, the walls settle. And like every old house, we've got mice. So, I'm used to weird sounds. I grew up with that stuff. But around the middle of 2023, I started noticing something different. Stuff that seemed to come from the basement. At first, it was small things. I'd be upstairs and hear shuffling, like something moving across the basement floor, or this quick little scurrying, and I'd just think, yeah, okay, that's just mice. No big deal. Then it started getting off. I'd go to bed after making sure the basement door was locked, like I know I locked it. And I'd wake up, go downstairs, and the door would be unlocked. At first I told my mom, and she just said, "You probably thought you locked it and forgot, honey." And I'm like, yeah, maybe? You kind of gaslight yourself, you know? So the next night, I'm extra careful. I lock it, jiggle the doorknob, even check it twice. Next morning, unlocked. Then it happens again, and again, and again. I'm talking like 4, 5 times in a couple weeks. At that point, I'm starting to get really creeped out, but I'm trying to be logical. I keep telling myself, "You're just forgetting, dude. Chill." Then more stuff starts happening. One afternoon, I'm walking into town to go to the Family Dollar, and as I'm leaving the house, I just feel weird. You know that feeling like you're being watched? So I turn around to look at the house, and I see the basement doors. Now, our basement has those old double doors that open outward from the outside, kind of like storm doors. And both of them, are wide open. I know I closed them, and they're heavy, like 30 or 40 pounds each. No way the wind just swung them open. So at this point, my heart is doing that fast, fluttery thing. I'm trying not to freak out in the middle of the yard. I tell myself I'll deal with it later and keep walking to the store, hoping that by the time I come back, I'll have some rational explanation in my head. I get my stuff, walk back, and the doors are still open. And honestly, as scared as I am, there's this tiny bit of relief, because at least I know I'm not imagining it. I'm not just forgetting this time. So I take a deep breath, push past the fear, and head down into the basement. Now, to explain the layout real quick, my basement's got 3 rooms. There's a big main room when you first walk in. Off that is a smaller room. And then there used to be a 3rd room, but part of it caved in like 6 or 7 years ago, so that area is basically unusable now. There's also this low, dark crawl space I've never gone into. Ever. It just gives off bad vibes. So I'm down there, in the first room, looking around. Nothing. Just the old furnace, some boxes, dust. I go into the second room, still nothing. It's quiet, just me breathing, my footsteps on the concrete. Then I walk past where the third room used to be, kind of skirting that broken area and the crawl space. I don't see anything at first. I'm about to head back upstairs, and as I pass the doorway, something in my peripheral vision makes me freeze. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a hand. Just a hand, pale, coming out of the edge of the crawl space. I don't stop to study it. I don't investigate. I don't do anything heroic. I just go, out loud, "Hell no!" I slam the basement door shut, twist the lock, and sprint upstairs so fast I'm pretty sure I skipped entire steps. When I wake up, it's dark, and my bedroom door is open. I know I locked it. I remember hearing the little click, but it's just standing there, cracked open like someone peeked in and forgot to shut it. I tell myself, okay, maybe you didn't actually lock it. Maybe you just thought you did. I'm trying so hard to be reasonable because the alternative is not fun. So I get up, walk around the house. It's quiet. Nothing's obviously out of place. No drawers open, no windows broken, nothing moved. It's like any other morning. Eventually, it gets to be around 8 in the evening, and the usual house noises start up again. Creaks, pops, little sounds from the basement. I try to ignore it. I game, I watch videos, I pretend I'm somewhere else. Then one night, I'm in my room playing Warzone, headset on, but not too loud because I've been paranoid lately. And that's when I hear it. Heavy panting, like a dog, right outside my bedroom door. I pause the game, pull one ear of the headset off, and listen. It's still there. This low, steady, heavy breathing. So I call out, "Roxy?" That's my dog. Nothing. No collar jingle, no scratching, no excited pause. Just breathing. I call her again, louder this time. Still nothing. And then it hits me like a bucket of ice water. Roxy went with my mom to Dave's. She's not here. That's when I say, "Oh shit," under my breath, and I put the controller down. The panting stops, just cuts off, like someone hit a mute button. I stand up, my heart pounding, and I'm trying to sound tougher than I feel. I grab the little knife I keep in my room. Yeah, I know, not smart, but it made me feel better. And I call out, "Who's out there?" Silence. So I say, "I'm serious. You've got 3 seconds to answer me or I'm coming out there." I'm shaking, trying to sound brave, trying to convince myself there's a normal explanation. And then, whatever it is out there makes this sound. It barks. Not a full, happy dog bark, more like a rough, short copy of a bark. But it sounds just like Roxy. Same pitch, same little hitch at the end. My brain latches onto that. I'm like, okay, maybe Mom forgot something and dropped Roxy back off. Maybe she didn't tell me. Maybe I just didn't hear the car. I let my guard down a bit, lower the knife, and walk toward the door. I open it. The second the door swings wide, something slams into me. Hard. I don't see anything, just this blur and then pain, and then I'm on the floor. It's so fast that I don't even have time to register what I'm looking at, if I was even looking at anything at all. Everything just goes black. When I come to, I'm lying on my bedroom floor. My head is pounding. I grab my phone to check the time. 1:36 a.m. My bedroom door is wide open. I get up way too fast, stumble a little, and run downstairs. In our kitchen, there's this little side room where we keep our shoes and coats. That room has a door to the kitchen, and then there's another door that leads to the backyard. Both of those doors are standing open, just like the basement doors were. Like something moved through there and didn't bother to close anything behind it. And in that moment, standing there in the dark with both doors open and the night just sitting outside like a big black mouth, I realized something. I don't feel safe here anymore. Not in this house. Not in this town I've known my whole life. Not with the doors I know I locked opening themselves, and hands in crawl spaces, and something that can bark like my dog and hit me so hard I black out. And the worst part? I still have to sleep here. Okay, so let me tell you about the one story that's never really let go of me. When I was little, the older kids in our neighborhood loved to scare us with ghost stories. You know the type. Urban legends, half made up, half remembered from someone's cousin's friend. Most of them I've forgotten, but there was one that stuck. They called it Uzunigyo, the whirlpool doll. According to them, it wasn't a full doll at all. Just a child's head with long, stringy hair, drifting around at night and laughing in this weird, hollow voice. Ho ho ho. As a kid, I tried to act tough, but honestly, I was terrified. I wouldn't even go to the bathroom at night without turning on every light on the way. Years passed, and I grew out of most of that fear. By high school, I'd pretty much convinced myself it was just one of those stories older kids pass down for fun. That summer, our school organized a camp up in the mountains by a lake. The lodge we stayed in was surrounded by forest. Really quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear insects and the wind in the trees, and not much else. Behind the lodge, a little way up the slope, there was this old, abandoned inn. The teachers told us not to go near it, said it was dangerous and unstable, which of course just made it 10 times more interesting. One night, after lights out, a younger student, her name was Mai, came running into our room, pale and shaking. She said, "I saw a kid's face at the door of the old inn. It was just staring." We all groaned and teased her. "Seriously? You've been watching too many horror movies." Someone joked, "Maybe it's Uzunigyo coming to say hi." We were laughing about it, kind of loud actually, and one of the guys pulled the curtain open to prove there was nothing there. From the window you could see the silhouette of the abandoned inn on the hill. And that's when we saw it. Not at the door like Mai said. This time it was at a second floor window. A small, pale face just pressed against the glass, looking down toward our lodge. At first we all went quiet, like maybe it was a reflection or a trick of the light. But the longer we stared, the more it felt like it was staring back. Someone said, too quickly, "It's probably a mannequin or something." And that kind of broke the silence. We talked ourselves into believing that. We wanted to believe that. Later that night, a group of us decided to sneak out and check. Because of course we did. There were 5 of us. Me, my friend Haru, another guy named Kenji, and 2 others. We took our flashlights and crept up the path behind the lodge, trying not to step on branches and give ourselves away. The air around the inn was different, cooler, damp. Up close, the building looked even worse. Windows mostly boarded up, the wood warped with age, the sign hanging crooked. The front sliding door wouldn't budge, so we found a side door that was already cracked open, like someone had forced it a long time ago. We squeezed through one by one. Inside, it felt like the building was holding its breath. Our flashlight beams cut through dust hanging in the air. There were broken chairs, rotting tatami, old posters peeling off the walls. It smelled like mold and something else, stale, like a room that had been closed for years. We walked in a line, our lights bouncing around. I remember the sound of our feet on the floorboards, soft, cautious creaks, At some point, I realized it had gotten too quiet. No insects, no wind, just us. We reached the center of what used to be the lobby. That's when Kenji started laughing. At first, it was just a small chuckle. We thought he was messing with us. "Cut it out, man," Haru said. "You're gonna freak everyone out." But Kenji didn't stop. His laughter got louder, sharper. It didn't match his face at all. His eyes were wide and unfocused, like he wasn't actually seeing us. I stepped toward him. "Kenji, hey, you okay?" He didn't answer. He just kept laughing, breathless, like he couldn't stop. That's when we heard it from the stairwell. A small voice echoing in that empty building. Ho, ho, ho. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Very slowly, we turned our flashlights toward the stairs. There, just beyond the corner of the staircase, something leaned out. It was a child's head. No shoulders, no body. Just the head, as if it were perched on an invisible shelf in the air. Long black hair hanging down, skin too pale, eyes too dark. It tilted slightly, like it was curious about us. Ho, ho, ho. The sound didn't match the shape of its mouth. It was like the voice was coming from somewhere deeper in the house, echoing through the walls. I remember my legs feeling like they weren't part of me. My whole body wanted to run, but I couldn't move. Then Haru grabbed my arm and yelled, "Run!" We dragged Kenji between us. He was still laughing, choking on the sound, heels scraping the floor. Someone kicked open a warped door or window, I can't even remember clearly, and we stumbled out into the cold night air. Only once we were outside did Kenji's laughter finally stop. He went limp, like someone had cut his strings. The teachers rushed him to the hospital in town. He stayed there for a while. When he came back, he seemed normal, just a bit quieter. The strange thing is, he didn't remember any of it. Ask him about the inn, and he'd frown and say, "I just remember feeling tired." The next day, the locals came up with the school staff. They nailed the doors shut properly, put up warning signs, even placed a small stone shrine near the path with fresh flowers and a little wooden plaque. I don't know what was written on it, but the adults looked serious. Camp ended and life went on. I went back home, back to my usual room, my usual routines. I tried to fold that night away like an old letter, something I could tuck into a drawer and forget. But a few nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night. No reason, just that feeling, like something was standing right outside your field of vision. My room was dim. The streetlight outside barely reached my window. I lay there, listening. And then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Soft but clear, right at my window. I told myself it was a branch or maybe a cat. I really wanted it to be a branch or a cat. Still, I got up. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I walked over and, with one hand, pulled the curtain aside just a little. On the roof outside my window, a child sat in a small, old-fashioned kimono. Bare feet, hair hanging over their face. For a second I thought, it's just a kid. It's just a kid who got up here somehow. Then its neck began to stretch. Slowly, smoothly, like someone was pulling its head away on an invisible rod. The body stayed seated, but the neck grew longer and longer, until the head was level with my window, mere inches from the glass. The hair slid back just enough for me to see the face. It was smiling. Too wide, too still. The mouth barely moved as that hollow voice floated into my room. Ho, ho, ho. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I just stood there, hand frozen on the curtain, staring back. I don't remember lying back down. I just remember that somehow At some point, I ended up under my blanket, shaking, and I watched the sky through a crack in the curtain until it turned gray and then light. In the morning, the roof outside my window was completely empty. No footprints, no scuff marks, nothing out of place. I told myself it was a dream. That's what anyone would say, right? Just a nightmare after a scary experience at camp. But sometimes, even now, on really quiet nights, I'll be doing something, reading, on my phone, whatever, and suddenly I'll feel that same heaviness in the air. Ho, ho, ho. So, let me tell you about something that happened back when I was in university. It didn't happen to me directly. It happened to my friend, Daniel. But I was right there for the aftermath, and I can still picture it like it was yesterday. It was around 10 at night. I was in my tiny off-campus apartment, half watching some late TV and half dozing on the couch, when my front door suddenly burst open. Daniel stumbled in without even knocking. His face was absolutely drained of color, his hair still damp, t-shirt half on like he'd thrown it over himself in a panic. He just sort of collapsed onto the floor right inside the doorway, breathing hard, shaking like he'd sprinted the whole way over. I remember sitting up and going, "Whoa, Dan, hey, what happened? Are you okay?" He didn't answer at first. His hands were trembling so badly he could barely untie his shoes. I could see his knees actually knocking together. It took him a good minute to catch his breath, and when he finally looked up at me, his eyes were glassy and unfocused, like he'd just walked out of a nightmare. I can't go back there," he muttered. "Back where?" I asked. He swallowed hard. "My place." Now, at the time, Daniel was living alone in this small but pretty nice studio apartment about 10 minutes from campus. His parents lived several hours away, and he wasn't dating anyone. I'd been there plenty of times. It was just him, his cluttered desk, a futon, and way too many instant noodle cups. So I asked him, "Did someone break in? Did something happen?" He shook his head, still staring at the floor. "No, that's the problem. There wasn't supposed to be anyone there." I could feel my skin prickling a bit, but I tried to stay calm for his sake. "Okay," I said gently. "Start from the beginning. What happened?" He took a deep breath, rubbed his face with his hands, and then, in this low, shaky voice, he told me. He'd gone home like usual after his evening lab, grabbed a quick dinner, and decided to soak in the bath for a bit to relax. His bathroom had one of those old apartment intercom panels on the wall, wired to the front door so you could buzz people in or talk to whoever rang. He said he was scrolling on his phone, half asleep in the warm water, when his elbow accidentally hit the intercom button. He heard the soft click as it turned on. He told me he sighed, annoyed, because he thought maybe he'd just buzzed someone by accident or triggered some weird noise in the hallway. He was about to get out and towel off when, from the speaker outside the bathroom, he clearly heard a woman's voice say, "Wait there, I'm coming in now." He said the voice was calm, not angry, not playful, just matter of fact, close, like she was standing just on the other side of the door. For a second, he thought maybe he'd misheard it. Maybe it was the TV from a neighbor's place, but then it sank in. He lived alone. He hadn't ordered food. No one was supposed to be coming over. And the intercom only connected to the building entrance and his front door. He told me that the realization hit him all at once. This cold, heavy feeling dropping right into his stomach. He suddenly became very aware of how quiet his apartment was. No footsteps in the hallway. No elevator sounds. Just water dripping from the faucet and his own breathing. And that voice, he said to me, staring at nothing. It was right there, in my apartment. Not from outside, inside. His whole body started shaking again, just remembering it. I wanted to get out of there, he said, but I was still in the tub. I felt exposed, like if I opened the door, someone would be standing right there, staring at me. He didn't look around. He didn't check any rooms. He just focused on the front door. I kept telling myself, "It's fine. There's no one. You're just freaking out," he said. But at the same time, it felt like someone was watching me. Like if I turned my head, I'd see them standing in the corner or behind the bathroom door. When he reached the entrance, he grabbed the handle and yanked. The door didn't move. He realized the deadbolt was still locked. That didn't bother him at first. He had a habit of locking it the moment he got home. But then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The security chain was still latched. "I locked it when I came home," he told me, his voice almost "I remember doing it. I always do. But if the chain was on the whole time..." He looked up at me then, eyes wide. Then who was the woman talking through the intercom? And how was she going to come in? He said that at that moment, every instinct in his body was screaming at him to get out. So he fumbled the chain open with shaking hands, unlocked the deadbolt, and practically ripped the door off its hinges, getting it open. He didn't even bother putting on shoes properly. He just shoved his feet into them and bolted down the hallway, down the stairs, and all the way to my place without looking back. By the time he finished telling me this, he was trembling again, his fingers wrapped so tightly around the beer can I'd given him that it was bending in his hand. I tried to be rational. I really did. "Maybe it was the neighbor's intercom," I suggested. "Maybe the sound carried through the walls or pipes, or a prank. You know how thin those walls are." He shook his head. "It was my intercom panel," he said firmly. "I heard the click when I pressed it. The little red light came on. And the voice. It wasn't distant. It was right there, right in the apartment." I started to ask, "Did you at least see anyone? Like, when you opened the door?" He cut me off, eyes dropping back to the floor. "I didn't look. I couldn't. I just ran." That night, he refused to go back to his apartment, so he crashed at my place instead. We left every light on: kitchen, bathroom, hallway, even the tiny balcony light. He downed almost every bottle of alcohol I had in the fridge, not to party, just to stop his hands from shaking long enough to fall asleep. Even then, he kept jolting awake, asking me to check the door. "Make sure the chain's on," he'd mutter. "Please, just make sure." The next morning, he called his parents from my living room. I could hear pieces of the conversation, his mom's worried voice crackling through the phone, his father's more serious tone. Daniel didn't go into details with them while I was listening, but I heard him say, "I don't feel safe there." And, "No, I really can't explain it, but I don't want to stay another night." Within a couple of days, his parents drove up, went to the apartment with him in broad daylight, and helped him pack his things. He didn't stay there alone again, not even once. After that, he moved back in with his parents for a while. Said he'd commute or maybe transfer, he wasn't sure. We messaged a bit at first, but then the replies got slower and slower. Eventually, his account went quiet. We never had a real conversation about that night again. Every once in a while, I still try to look him up. Old group chats, social media, mutual friends, but it's like he just drifted out of everyone's orbit. Nobody seems to know exactly where he ended up. I think about that a lot. And here's the funny thing. Well, not funny, but you know what I mean. But ever since that night with Daniel back in university, I've been very, very careful. When I take a bath or shower, I make sure I don't lean against that wall. I keep my distance from that little button. I never rest my arm near it. I never touch it by accident. Because the thought that creeps up on me every time I see that intercom is this: if I pressed it without meaning to, and a woman's voice came through, calm and clear, saying, "Wait there, I'm coming in now." I honestly don't know if I'd be brave enough to look around either. You know, I grew up in this tiny barangay in the Philippines, way out in the province. Rice fields, tricycles, the usual, nothing fancy. On the outside, my life looks very normal. But ever since I was a kid, there's been this extra layer to my world. I've always been sensitive to things I can't see: ghosts, encantos, even what some elders call mananiktik or manignos. I don't actually see them. No white ladies appearing in the hallway or anything like that. It's more like I feel them. It's like the air shifts, or the mood of the room changes, and suddenly I just know I'm not alone. I'm the only one in my family who's like this. My parents and my sisters, Mara and Lisa, they don't really feel anything. They believe me, kind of, but for them it's just stories. For me, it's my everyday background noise. The feeling is really hard to explain. It's not like ordinary fear or regular stress. It's more like this silent pressure. Imagine you're doing something, and suddenly you just know somebody wants you to stop. Or you're sleeping, and it's as if someone is standing right beside your bed, staring at you, silently saying, "Wake up." It hits me in my body first. My chest gets tight, my stomach feels heavy, like there's a stone inside. My mind starts racing even if nothing is actually happening. It's not the same as being angry or worried about something I understand. This one doesn't have a clear reason. It just shows up, and I can tell it's connected to them. Because of that, I've had trouble sleeping since I was really young. I learned to live with it. I found little routines: praying, listening to soft music, keeping a small light on, things like that. Eventually, I settled into a simple, peaceful life, where the strange stuff became more like the background. Still there, but not as loud. Then came the spare room. In our house, there's this small room at the back. We used to store old things there, but after a while it was just left closed. No one had stayed in it for, I think, almost 7 years. The window is small, the walls are plain, but it's comfortable for one person if you clean it up. Recently, I got a job as an online tutor, so sometimes I have to stay up late because of the time difference with my students. When I was still sharing a room with my sisters, my typing and moving around would wake them up. So I thought, okay, I'll just fix up the spare room, work there at night, and sleep there too. Problem solved. At that time, I hadn't felt anything strange in a long while, so I thought maybe things had finally settled down. Maybe the spirits had moved on, or I'd grown out of that sensitivity. I was wrong. The very first night I slept in that room, I was exhausted. I'd been working on my laptop for hours, checking lessons, sending feedback. When I finally lay down, it should have been easy to fall asleep. But as soon as the lights were off and the house went quiet, I felt it. That presence. It wasn't just regular nervousness. It was that familiar weight in the air. I felt watched. Not from one corner, but from all around. Like the room itself was awake and paying attention to me. What's strange is, I didn't feel like it wanted to hurt me. It was more like offended, upset. If I could put it into words, it felt like, "Why are you here? This is not yours." That feeling kept pulling me out of sleep. I'd drift off for maybe 30 minutes, then suddenly open my eyes. No noise, no movement, just that strong sense that someone was standing too close. I'd look around and, of course, see nothing, but the feeling stayed. This went on for 2 nights. During the day, when I was working on the computer in that room, I could feel something faint behind me. Not close enough to touch me, but close enough that the hairs on my neck stood up. You know that feeling when someone reads over your shoulder? It was like that, but quieter, colder. I tried talking to them, softly, respectfully. I said things like, "Please, I'm just working. I don't mean any harm. This is our house too." Then, when I got scared, I'd snap and say, "Stop it! Leave me alone!" But deep down I knew, from all the stories I'd heard growing up, that simply telling them to go away doesn't really work with beings like that. After 2 nights of barely sleeping, I'd had enough. In the morning, I went back to my sister's room and told Mara and Liza what happened. I told them how it felt, how I kept waking up, and how the room felt occupied. We started talking about it, remembering things from when we were younger. When we were kids, there were 2 parts of the house that always felt strange, like they were claimed by something else. Over the years, we renovated one area, added a small extension, and that weird feeling there faded. It's almost like the spirits slowly got pushed back, and now the only space they have left is that little spare room. We kind of laughed nervously about it, but we all agreed on one thing. They're probably upset because I barged into what they consider their space. Like I moved into their last corner of the house without asking. It's not just me either. Guests who sleep in that room always feel something off. Some say they feel stressed for no reason. Some wake up with headaches, and a few even get mild fevers. But the strange part is, it only happens if they sleep there. If they stay in the living room or in our shared room instead, they're fine. So today, I gave up the idea of conquering that spare room. I moved my things back into the room I share with my sisters. It's a bit crowded again. Laptop on a small table, clothes piled in one corner. But at least I can sleep without feeling like I'm intruding on someone else's home. We're talking about how to handle it now. Maybe we'll ask a priest to bless the house again. Maybe we'll invite an elder who knows how to talk to spirits, to make peace, acknowledge that the room is part of their space, but also part of ours. I don't feel angry at them, honestly. If anything, I feel like we've been sharing this house for years, and I just forgot to be considerate. So yeah, for now, I respect that the spare room isn't just an empty room. Something lives there, or at least lingers there. And until we find a peaceful way to share the space, I'll let them have it. After all, we're the ones who can move and adjust. They only have that small room left. So, my name's Michael, and this is the story of the wildest night of my life. I always feel a little awkward starting this one, because it sounds like a movie pitch, but it really happened. And the strangest part is, I wasn't even looking for anything paranormal. I just wanted a quieter life in the country with people I loved. Back in 2020, I moved from Indiana down to this tiny place in northern Alabama called Ridgefield. It wasn't even a real town, more like a collection of houses and trailers stitched together by gravel roads and fields. I went down there for my then girlfriend. Let's call her Mara. Mara and I met online. She'd been following my music and art since late 2018, and eventually we went from comments to DMs to video calls, to planning trips. By the time COVID really hit, we were serious enough that long distance just wasn't cutting it anymore. There was one catch, though. She still lived with her ex, Caleb. Now, Caleb had been in her life for, 10 years. They weren't really a couple anymore, more like best friends who never untangled their lives. On top of that, Mara used to be polyamorous. If we wanted to be together, we had to agree to make things monogamous. I was nervous, I'm not gonna lie, but I took the risk. To my surprise, Caleb and I actually got along. He was this tall, lanky history nerd who collected old coins, busted muskets, and all kinds of antique knives and swords. He'd just pop into the living room like, "Hey, you want to see a bayonet from World War I?" The place we lived in was rough, but charming in a weird way. Old farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere, with cornfields, cows in the distance, and a dirt driveway that turned into a mudslide when it rained. Floors were patched, some doors didn't shut right, but the rent was something like $350 a month, which tells you everything you need to know about the condition. Still, I was happy. New state, new people, fresh start. Enter Jade. By the summer of 2021, things had settled into a routine. Then Caleb met this girl at his job at the grocery store. Let's call her Jade. From what he told us, she kind of just walked up to him on a slow night and said something like, "I don't know why, but your energy feels familiar." Which is a wild thing to say to someone stocking dog food, but hey, it worked. They started hanging out, and pretty quickly, she was over at the house a lot. At first, I really liked her. She was sharp, funny, kind of nerdy, and she loved to laugh. Every now and then she'd smoke a little, but nothing crazy. She was polite, sweet, and honestly seemed more grounded than a lot of people I'd met. Then she opened up about her spiritual side. She told us that when she was a kid, her mom had forced her into this ritual, a blood oath kind of thing. She said her mom had this old occult book and drew a pentagram, made her cut her finger, and swear something she didn't understand. After that, she said weird things started happening to her. Feeling watched, seeing shadow figures, hearing voices, having episodes where something else would take over. She'd lose chunks of time. And sometimes, she said, she just slipped into this void and couldn't get out. She was very open about it. No theatrics, no trying to impress us. Just, "Hey, this is my reality. If you're going to be around me, you should know." Caleb didn't seem too bothered. Mara was used to spiritual stuff and energy work, so she took it seriously. Me? I was on the fence. I believed her, but I kind of hoped it was just some weird sleep paralysis type thing. Then one night, I ran out of room for doubt. The first night. We're just about to fall asleep when we hear this dull thud somewhere in the hallway. Not super loud, just enough to make you go, "Huh?" A few minutes later, there's a knock on our bedroom door. Caleb's voice, calm but tight. "Hey, can you guys come help with something?" Mara gets up right away. I stay in bed at first, just listening. I can hear them talking, but it's muffled, and after maybe 10 minutes, curiosity wins. I swing my legs out of bed, open the door, and lean into the hallway. Jade is on the floor. She's lying kind of sideways in the middle of the hall, half in shadow, mumbling, "No, no, 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 no," over and over, like someone trapped in a nightmare. My first thought, honestly, was that maybe she was having a bad reaction to something she smoked. Her eyes were open, but it was like nobody was home. Caleb and Mara were kneeling beside her, trying to snap her out of it, calling her name, touching her shoulder, telling her she was safe. She wasn't responding, just stuck in that weird, low chant. We decide to get her outside, thinking fresh air might help. So we carefully pick her up and carry her out into the front yard. The sky is clear, stars everywhere, the kind of quiet that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. We lay her on the grass. After a minute or two, she starts to come back. Her eyes focus a little, and she blinks like she's just woken up from a long, confusing nap. She turns her head towards me and, in this soft, tired voice, says, "I can feel how nervous you are. It's okay." She hadn't even really looked at me yet, but she nailed it. I gave this awkward half laugh like, "Yeah, no kidding." She explains that this isn't new to her. She calls it the void. She says when it happens, it's like she's trapped in this dark, empty place with no sense of time, and when she comes back, it's fuzzy at best. Meanwhile, Mara and Caleb are sharing that look people share when they've already decided, this is spiritual. Once Jade can sit up, we bring her back in and lay her on the couch in Caleb's room. He's holding her, trying to keep her grounded. That's when he notices these scratches on the back of her shoulder. I'm standing behind the couch, and he turns her a little so we can see. There are 3 long, red welts across her shoulder blade. Fresh, angry, like something clawed her. We didn't have any pets in that room, and she hadn't fallen against anything. Then he tells us something else. Right before she collapsed, she kept drifting toward the bathroom down the hall. He said her face went blank. She started walking toward it slowly, and as she reached the doorway, the hall light flickered and blew out. Just pop. Done. It never turned back on after that. That got my attention. We'd always hated that bathroom. The whole house was old, but that room had this extra layer of nope attached to it. Soft, warped floorboards, mildew smell, and a weird, cold stillness even in summer. We hardly ever used it. There was a second bathroom on the other side of the house, so we just kept this one shut and pretended it wasn't there. Jade tells us that whatever was messing with her was in that bathroom, that it was trying to lure her in. At this point, my logical brain is clocking out, and my, okay, what if this is real, brain is clocking in. The possession. We go to check the bathroom. As soon as I step in, I get goosebumps. The air feels thick, heavy, colder than the rest of the house. My arms break out in chills. We don't stay long. We get back to Caleb's room, and that's when things really escalate. Jade starts to go distant again. Her eyes glaze over, turn kind of glassy and red-rimmed. Her posture changes. Her breathing gets deeper, heavier, and then she starts to fight. Not like a confused person thrashing in their sleep. This was targeted, angry, strong. It's clear very quickly that we're not talking to Jade anymore. Her voice drops, gets rough and guttural. She growls, snaps, tries to jerk free. We actually try to talk to whatever's in there. I know that sounds ridiculous, but in the moment, it felt like the only thing we could do. We say stuff like, "You don't have to stay here. There's so much world out there. Go anywhere. Go see the oceans, the mountains. Just leave her alone." And this thing answers. It says it wants to make itself known, that someone has to die. At one point, it even threatens to kill one of our pets. We had 2 cats and a little mutt of a dog, all of them sitting in the doorway, wide-eyed, watching us. Every time the thing mentioned them, my stomach dropped. All the while, Caleb is wrestling to keep her pinned, sweating, exhausted, just repeating her name under his breath like a mantra. Mara looks at me and goes, "Go grab sage, the fresh stuff from the garden, now." I bolt outside, grab a handful of sage from the little herb patch by the porch, run back in, and try to light it. Fresh sage doesn't really want to burn, but I get it smoldering eventually, blowing on it until it starts to put off smoke. The reaction is instant. Every time I waft the smoke toward Jade's face, this thing snarls. Low, angry, like it's in pain. Her body tenses and jerks. It's not subtle. So I just keep going. I circle the room, then aim the smoke right at her. Sometimes she manages to get an arm loose and tries to swat the sage out of my hand, but I've got a death grip on that little bundle. At one point, it's taunting us, talking trash, saying we're weak and we can't do anything. I don't even know what came over me, but I just blurt out, "Man, who pissed in your cereal?" For a second, everything goes quiet. And then it lets out this deep, dark chuckle. I remember thinking, great, I've just made a demon laugh. That's not on my life bingo card. We play spiritual music, stuff that feels uplifting and protective. We pray in our own messy, not religious way, just calling on whatever light and protection we can think of. We keep the sage going, keep talking to Jade, reminding her she's loved, that she's stronger than this thing. This goes on for hours. The whole night starts to blur into this loop of smoke, growling, whispered encouragement, and the sound of Caleb's breathing as he holds her in place. Eventually, the intensity starts to dip. The growls get weaker. Her body isn't fighting as hard. By the time the first light of morning starts slipping through the blinds, this thing feels tired. We think we're done. We're not. The salt test. Around sunrise, Jade seems to come back. She blinks slowly, looks around like she just woke up in someone else's house. Her voice softens. She sounds like herself again, shaky, confused, but there. We're all exhausted. Mara decides to make her some herbal tea to help calm her nerves. As she's in the kitchen, she remembers something. Salt is supposed to be cleansing, protective. So, without saying anything, she stirs a good pinch or two of pink Himalayan salt into Jade's mug. We bring it back to her. She sits up a little, hands trembling, and takes a small sip. The reaction is immediate. She chokes, coughs, and the mug slips from her hand and shatters on the floor. Her eyes snap wide open, and that heavy, dark presence slams back into the room. It had been pretending. The demon, or whatever you want to call it, was just wearing her like a mask, waiting. As soon as the salt hits, it can't hold the act anymore. It snaps, and suddenly we're right back where we were. Voice low, body tense, vicious hostility pouring out of her. So round 2 begins. More sage, more prayers, more wrestling. The only difference this time is that it's weaker. Not harmless, but not as overwhelming as it was earlier. The grasshopper. Around 7 a.m., we can all tell the thing is draining. The growls are rougher, slower. The energy in the room feels like a storm that's finally passing. We manage to get Jade back outside, into the yard, to the same patch of grass under the morning sun. The sky is a soft blue, birds are waking up, and the air feels cleaner. We lay her down gently. She's pale, barely able to move. After a minute, she manages to sit up with our help, legs stretched out in front of her. Her eyes are half closed, like she's between worlds. We're just sitting there in silence when this tiny green grasshopper hops onto her left leg. We all notice it at the same time, but nobody says anything. It climbs up her knee, then onto her index finger. She lifts her hand slowly, bringing it closer to her face, and just stares at it for maybe 30 seconds. It felt like she was focusing everything she had left into that moment, into that little creature. Then, without a word, she lifts her arm and gently flicks her finger. The grasshopper jumps off into the tall grass and disappears. Right after that, she makes this small motion, like she's tying an invisible knot around a nearby dandelion stem. And then she just lies back, inch by inch, until she's flat on the ground and unconscious again. The energy around us shifts. It's subtle, but we all feel it. Lighter. Quieter. We look at each other, too tired to analyze it, but we all have the same thought. Something just left. Aftermath and the second night. We carry her back inside. Caleb lays her on the bed and stays with her. I get maybe 2 hours of sleep before I have to drag myself to work. I remember driving that morning like I was in a dream, half convinced none of it really happened. The next day, our friend Marcus comes over. He usually hung out with us almost every day. We tell him the whole story. He believes us, but you can tell he also kind of thinks we're exaggerating. Fast forward to around 11 p.m. that night. Marcus and Caleb are outside in the front yard with Jade, just talking, smoking, hanging out under the stars. The yard opens up into this big cornfield with a tree line and a small shed off to the right. It looks peaceful from the porch, but at night, those woods are pitch black. Mara and I are in the kitchen cooking when Marcus bursts through the door, eyes wide, a little out of breath. Guys? I think we're gonna need that sage again. He tells us Jade went quiet, her face went blank, and she started walking toward the dark edge of the property, toward the woods and the old shed. Marcus followed her, trying to get her attention. When he asked if she was okay, she turned around slowly, eyes empty, and in this low, drawn-out voice said, "No." That was enough for him. He sprinted back to the house. This time, we're not caught off guard. While I was at work that day, I'd picked up powdered sage, just in case. Caleb and Marcus grab Jade and guide her back inside, even as she's resisting. We get her onto the same couch. Caleb wraps his arms around her again, and we start the whole process over. Sage, smoke, music, firm words. Mara and Caleb are done being polite about it. They're tired of this thing coming into the house, and they say so. They tell it, "You're not strong. You're pathetic for needing a host. You can't touch us. You're not welcome here." And honestly, it is weaker. The whole possession lasts maybe 2 hours this time. Still intense, still scary, but nothing like the marathon of the night before. You can almost feel it slipping, like a bad signal cutting in and out. Marcus gets front row seats to all of it. By the end, he's pale and quiet, and very much no longer skeptical. Later, Jade tells us she felt the demon in the shed. She thinks when that grasshopper hopped away, it headed straight there, like the shed was some kind of anchor point. At the time, he wrote it off as being tired. After that second night, it didn't feel so random anymore. After that second night, things went quiet. No more possessions, no more strange sounds or shadows, no more lights blowing out. Life, slowly, went back to normal. Or as normal as it can after you've held a demon-possessed girl while your roommate waves burning sage in its face. We told a few friends and family members. Most of them believed us enough, like, "Okay, I don't think you're lying, but I don't really know what to do with this information." About a week later, Jade broke things off with Caleb. She was heartbroken, and then she was gone. They lost contact. To this day, we don't know how she's doing, or if that thing ever tried to come back. Eventually, Mara and I broke up too. It wasn't some huge, dramatic blow-up. We just grew apart. I moved out of Alabama, that closer to my own family. We're still on decent terms, and we check in on each other now and then. I look back on those 2 years in that creaky old house in Ridgefield, and it feels like a whole other lifetime. The good memories, the long talks on the porch, the stupid jokes, the music, the love, all of it sits right next to those 2 nights of pure, surreal fear. And as crazy as it sounds, I'm weirdly grateful I went through it. It cracked my world open a bit, made me realize how little we really understand about whatever else is out there. I don't pretend to have answers. I just know what I saw, what I felt, and what we all experienced together. If there's one silly but serious piece of advice I'll leave you with, it's this. Keep some sage and some salt in your house. You might never need it, but if you do, you'll be really glad it's there. Hello everyone, it's me again, Mr. Paranormal M. It's finally time to sit down with the mic and tell some paranormal stories to help you sleep better. This is always my favorite moment of the whole day. I really love this job because I feel much closer to everyone. And of course, thank you for always listening and supporting me. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications to receive the fastest notifications about the latest videos. And don't hesitate to send me your stories. Now put on your headphones and let's get started. Okay, so, as most people around me have figured out by now, I've had a lot of experiences with ghosts and the paranormal. This isn't a once-in-a-while thing for me. I have spirits that basically live alongside us and check in every day, the way neighbors do. The ones I see most often are my good friend Riley, his twin brother Logan, and my husband's little shadow, Maya. Those three are kind of my regulars. They drift in and out of rooms, hang around when we're talking, and sometimes they're closer than the living people in my life. They've been with us long enough that I worry about them the way I worry about family. There are a few others who stay mostly in the house. There's Eli, who usually hides behind my mother-in-law's favorite chair. I'll see him crouched there, playing jacks on the floor, completely absorbed in his game, like a kid who never grew out of it. Then there's an indigenous teen who spends a lot of time by my mother-in-law's bedroom window, pacing back and forth. He has this protective energy, like he's on guard duty, because there's another spirit outside that same window that constantly tries to get in. You can feel the tension sometimes, like a quiet standoff. And then we've got the non-ghosts, the other entities. Two of them stay with us pretty regularly, Zeke and Lena. Zeke is technically a succubus, and Lena is an incubus. Don't ask me why the labels don't line up with what people usually expect. Trust me, I've given up trying to make it make sense. I let them pick what I'd call them, and those are the names they chose. That's kind of the theme in my life. I meet very odd beings, and half the time, I just roll with it. We also get visitors who drop in from time to time, like my stepdad and my husband's grandmother. They don't hang around constantly, but they come through enough that I can tell when they're near. The room feels a little fuller, a little warmer. And then there are the animals. A couple of dogs, more cats than I can honestly count, and yes, even fish. The dog spirits are the easiest for me to recognize. The three that show up the most are my husband's dog Muffin, my girl Kaya, and one other that just kind of tags along with whoever has food. Muffin was a boxer beagle mix, and she was one of the sweetest dogs I've ever known. Just pure wiggly love with paws. Kaya was my baby. She was supposed to be a pit bull and Rottweiler St. Bernard mix, but she grew into this long-haired, wild-looking dog who didn't quite fit any of those breeds. My family is pretty convinced her dad was part coyote, or maybe even wolf. It would explain her build and her coloring, and the way she'd stare off into the woods like she remembered something we couldn't see. The cats? There are honestly too many to keep track of. My family has had cats for as long as I can remember, so there's kind of a revolving door of cat spirits. The one who stands out the most is my son's cat, Midnight. Yes, he named her. He called her Mimi when he was being sweet. She was pitch black with a tiny white streak on her chin, like she'd dipped her face in milk. Every so often she'll pop back in, and because my current dog is about the size of a large cat, we'll catch a glimpse of Midnight and think it's Pumpkin, our little dog, slipping around the corner. Then Pumpkin comes trotting in from the opposite direction, and we just look at each other like, okay, that was definitely the cat. Something a lot of psychics or mediums won't always say out loud is that we are constantly surrounded by spirits, ghosts, non-human entities, and even what I'd call demons, though not in the strict Christian sense. They're around us in everyday life, way more than most people realize. And here's another thing that ghost shows and dramatic stories usually leave out. Not all entities are evil. They're not all out to hurt you or ruin your life. Most of them are just trying to navigate whatever living their death looks like for them. They have routines, attachments, habits, just like we do. So if you ever move into a new place and feel a presence, or you're out somewhere and you sense a spirit nearby, try not to jump straight to fear. For the most part, they're not there to harm you. They're just there, existing, curious, maybe a little confused, sometimes protective. If you can remember that not everything unseen is out to get you. It makes sharing this world, and whatever overlaps with it, a lot less terrifying and a lot more human. You know, every time we drive along the river near the Astoria-Megler Bridge, I can't help looking up toward that old fort on the Washington side. Fort Columbia. If you're heading out toward Long Beach, you actually pass right underneath it. Most people just keep going. But that place, it has its hooks in me. The fort's been there since the turn of the 1900s, built back when everyone was terrified of enemy ships sliding up the Columbia River. These days, it's a quiet little state park and historical site. Picnic tables, interpretive signs, the usual nothing to see here vibe. But there is so much more going on than the brochures let on. I went there for the first time years ago when my partner, back then he was just my boyfriend, Leo, and I came up to visit his family in Washington. He knew I was a history nerd, so he suggested we check the fort out. Honestly, he probably thought I'd just get excited about cannons and old brickwork. And I did. At first. See, I don't usually read up on haunted stories before I visit a place. I like to go in clean, if that makes sense. I want to feel it for myself before other people's experiences get in my head. So I had no idea what people said about Fort Columbia. I just knew it was old, and old places remember things. From the parade ground, you can see the bridge stretching across the water, and on a clear day, you can even make out the Astoria column way off in the distance. It's beautiful in that quiet, melancholy way. Like the whole place is permanently stuck between then and now. The first time we walked up toward the barracks, I felt it immediately. You know that feeling when you walk into a crowded room and everyone stops talking and looks at you? That's what it was like, except the barracks were empty. I hadn't even gone all the way inside yet. I was just standing there in the doorway, and suddenly I could feel men watching me. Dozens of them. Not hostile, just curious, a little wary. It wasn't just from the barracks either. Across the way, near what used to be the officers' quarters, I caught this distinct sense of a woman and at least 2 children. I never saw them clearly, but it felt like a mother trying to keep her kids still while they peeked out from behind her skirts to look at the strange visitor wandering around their fort. All of that, honestly, I could handle. I've felt spirits before. That kind of background hum is almost normal to me in old places. But the bunker? The artillery bunker is different. The minute we stepped down into it, the air changed. It felt heavier, like something was pressing against my chest. There were soldiers down there too, spirits moving around, doing their jobs, checking equipment that hasn't existed for decades. Most of them didn't care that we were there. They just brushed past like we were ghosts to them. And then there was the other thing. I call it the shadow because I still have no better name for it. It isn't just a dark shape in the corner. It's like the absence of light and sound and warmth all at once. Even when I couldn't see it fully, I could feel it. The way you can tell someone is staring at you from behind without hearing or seeing anything. On that first visit, I tried to ignore it, pretend it was my imagination. But that only works for so long. We were walking through the bunker, my hand trailing along the cold concrete wall. And every few steps I kept catching it out of the corner of my eye, always slightly off to my left. Always just far enough away that if I turned my head quickly, it would slip out of focus. The fear hit me hard. And I've dealt with dark things before. Entities that didn't feel human. Places that hold on to anger. But this was new. This was deeper. Older. Wrong in a way I still can't quite put into words. Eventually, I saw it more clearly. I've encountered things without faces before, but this one felt like it wanted me to know it was aware of me. Not curious, not indifferent, focused. I froze. My whole body went cold. Hands, feet, even my scalp. I remember thinking, oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad. That's when Leo moved. He didn't see what I saw, not fully, but he could tell something was wrong. He stepped in front of me, just instinctively, putting himself between me and that thing. For a few seconds, it was like the air thinned out around us, like the bunker itself was holding its breath. And then, just like that, it was gone. Or at least, it felt like it retreated. We left shortly after that. I didn't say much until we were back in the car, and even then I could tell Leo was watching me out of the corner of his eye, like he was waiting for me to say, "Just kidding, I'm fine." I wasn't fine. The weird thing is, I knew I'd go back, and I have. We've been to the fort several times since then. Every time we go, Leo, now my husband, stays close to me in the bunker, almost like it's become our unspoken rule. He'll crack a joke, take a picture of the view, act casual, but the second we head down into that concrete tunnel, his hand finds mine or settles on my back, steady and grounding. The soldiers are still there. The women and children are still there. The fort is still as beautiful and heartbroken as ever. And the shadow is still there too. Sometimes I forget about it until we're halfway down the steps, and then that familiar pressure settles back over my shoulders. I don't always see it, but I can feel when it's paying attention. It's like the temperature drops just a few degrees, and the sounds from outside get muffled. Like we've stepped out of the world and into someone else's memory. Since that first trip, I finally let myself listen to some of the stories people tell about Fort Columbia. Legends about soldiers who died there, families who lived on base, rumors about people sneaking in at night to mess with seances and Ouija boards and whatever else TikTok tells them is a good idea. Some of it might be true. Some of it is definitely exaggerated. But here's the part that bothers me. None of those stories explain this thing. Not the faceless shadow. Not the way its presence feels so out of place. Like it doesn't quite belong to the fort, but it's attached to it anyway. I've heard whispers that people come out there after dark, breaking into buildings, trying to stir things up for a scare. Maybe they woke something up they didn't understand. Maybe they opened a door and never really closed it. I don't know. What I do know is this. If I'm scared of it, and I work with this kind of energy more than most people, I can't imagine what that shadow feels like to someone who has abilities they don't even know they have. Someone who's sensitive, but hasn't learned how to protect themselves yet. Someone who just thought they were going on a cute little historical day trip. I keep telling myself I need to go back with a clearer intention, not just to visit, but to really sit with it, to try to understand what it is, or at least what it wants. To see if it's something bound to that place, or something that wandered in looking for a foothold. Part of me is terrified, and part of me feels like the fort is asking me to. Like it's tired of holding this thing alone. It's the night of April 26th, and I'm feeling miserable, with one of those annoying little colds that isn't bad enough to justify dramatic whining, but just bad enough to make you sneeze every 4 minutes. My husband, Daniel, is technically retired now, but he's still a champion insomniac, so to spare him my sniffling and coughing, I took myself downstairs to sleep on the couch and scroll on my phone for a while. At some point, I dozed off, phone in hand. When I blinked awake, I checked the time. 1:37 a.m. exactly. No reason. I just remember seeing the numbers and thinking, ugh, really? I decided I was up for a bit, so I opened the biography I'd been reading, one of those old Hollywood stories full of scandals and studio gossip, and started another chapter. I got completely sucked in. You know how it is when the rest of the house is quiet and the phone glow makes this little bubble of light around you? It was just me, the couch, and this dead movie star's bad decisions. And then, out of nowhere, it sounded like a tiny tornado exploded in the foyer. I mean that literally. 1 second, silence. The next, this whirring, churning rush of air, like someone had turned on an industrial fan inside a closet. It was loud. The weird part was, it made absolutely no sense. The weather outside was perfectly calm. No rain, no thunder. Just a still, ordinary night. And even if it had been storming, our front door and windows are old but solid. We don't get drafts like that. There was just no way for wind to be doing whatever that was. Our foyer is this small square space, maybe 8 by 8, right where everything meets. The stairs going up, a swinging door into the old butler's pantry and kitchen, and the big archway that opens into the living room where I was sitting. The tornado, or whatever it was, seemed to be stuck there at first, swirling in that little crossroads of the house. I sat up and looked. Nothing. No curtains moving. No papers flying. The usual mess on the foyer table. Mail, a scarf, a couple of receipts I keep meaning to throw away, was just sitting there behaving itself. Not even a flutter. That's when the spooked feeling kicked in. I put my phone down and just listened. The sound changed. The wind pushed through the oak swing door to the pantry with this heavy wham, as if someone had shoved the door open hard. Then it rushed through the pantry and into the kitchen, and I heard a sharp thwack against our old wooden kitchen table. It genuinely sounded like something invisible had body slammed it. I froze. Then it moved again, across to the far side of the kitchen, toward the east wall. There was another hit, this time against one of the upper cabinets, hard enough that I heard the dishes inside rattle from where I was in the living room. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't the house settling. It was forceful, deliberate sounding. And then came the part that really got under my skin. After the banging, there was this short series of clicks and pops. Not like the house creaking or pipes knocking, different. It was irregular too, like a pattern trying to form and almost making it, but not quite. The closest way I can describe it is that it felt like an attempt at speech. Not in any language, obviously, but there was something strangely intentional about it. Finally, I heard what sounded like heavy, slow footsteps. Thump, 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 crossing toward the back door. Then, silence. Just the ordinary quiet of our sleeping house. I tried, very bravely I might add, to be rational about it. Old house, weird acoustics. Maybe the furnace did something odd. Maybe a branch fell just right. My brain started grabbing for any explanation it could find. I picked up my phone and tried to go back to reading, but my eyes were just sliding over the words. My heart wouldn't settle. Finally, I thought, you know what? I don't have to be brave. I can just go upstairs. So I did. I crept up the stairs, half expecting to hear that strange wind start up again behind me. But the house was quiet. When I peeked into the bedroom, Daniel looked like he was actually asleep, for once. I figured if he'd heard anything, he would have been up pacing, or at least sitting in bed blinking at the ceiling. Since he seemed peaceful, I didn't say a word. I just slipped under the covers, tried not to cough in his direction, and eventually drifted off. Morning came, and with it, that maybe I dreamed it feeling. My cold had mostly cleared up, which helped me convince myself that I'd probably been a little feverish, a little fuzzy-headed, maybe half dreaming. It all sounded more dramatic in my memory than it had really been, right? That's what I told myself while I made coffee. Then Daniel shuffled into the kitchen, hair sticking up, and squinted at me. "What on earth was going on down here last night?" he asked. "You were stomping around the kitchen, banging cabinets. Did you have a full-blown snack attack or what?" I just stared at him, because I hadn't been in the kitchen. I hadn't even gotten off the couch until I came upstairs. And that's when my little, maybe I imagined it theory quietly packed its bags and left. All right, let me tell you a story I heard that still gives me chills when I think about it. So, do you believe in life after death? In spirits that kind of overlap with our world, like two TV channels playing at the same time. You can't always see the other one, but sometimes the signal crosses. This story came from a car battery shop owner in Pathum Thani, Thailand. And unlike most ghost stories that happen at 3 a.m. in the dark, this one took place in bright, normal, weekday morning sunlight. The shop owner's name is Noon. She runs a little battery shop with her husband, Art. Their place is one of those local shops where everyone in the area knows, yeah, you can just show up early. They'll already be awake. That day, around 7 a.m., the shutters weren't fully open yet, but Noon and Art were already moving things around, getting ready. As they're sweeping and setting up, a car slowly pulls up to the front. Noon recognizes it right away. Regular customer. Same stickers on the back window, same slight dent on the bumper. The driver, a middle-aged uncle type, gets out and walks over to Art. Art, can you help me change the battery on another car at my house? This one's fine, but the other one won't start. They chat a bit, just normal talk. While they're talking, the back door of the car opens. Out steps this little girl, around 8 or 9, wearing bright yellow pajamas with big cartoon ducks all over them. Her hair is in slightly messy pigtails, and she's got that just woke up face. She walks straight past everyone and goes to play with Noon's golden retriever, Lucky, who's tied near the front of the shop. Lucky is usually picky about strangers, but with this girl, he's wagging his tail like crazy, licking her hands, rolling over for belly rubs. Noon looks at them and smiles. She calls out, "Nong kao mai len kang nai mai? Dio ron na loop." Sweetie, wanna come play inside? It'll get hot out here. The girl just smiles shyly and says, "Mai pen rai ka. Nu yu trong ni dai." It's okay. I can stay here. A few minutes later, the dad finishes talking to Art and says, "Okay, follow me to my house in like 10 minutes, all right? I'll go send my daughter to school first." He closes the door, and the little girl hops back into the car with him. The car pulls away like normal. So Noon sits on the back of their motorbike, holding a brand new battery on her lap, while Art drives. It's not far, about 5 minutes away. They ride into this older, gated community. Nothing fancy, just an older neighborhood where the security guard is half asleep. You know the type. The front gate is already open, no checking IDs or anything, so they just drive in. They find the house easily. 2-story place, white walls, bit faded but still clearly lived in. When they pull up, the gate is open. The lights inside are on. They can hear a TV running from the living room. From the kitchen, there's the sound of pans clinking and someone cooking. They even catch the smell of fried eggs and garlic. Classic Thai breakfast vibes. Everything feels completely normal. Lively, even. The customer walks out of the front door, same guy from earlier, and greets them like nothing strange has ever happened in his life. He leads them to a white sedan parked in the driveway and asks Art to replace the battery. While Art is working, Noon stands nearby, just making small talk with the owner, like locals do. She says, "Your daughter is really cute. Those duck pajamas are adorable." He pauses. "My daughter?" Noon nods. "Yeah, the girl who played with my dog this morning. She came out of your car." He frowns a bit and says, "I went to your shop alone." Now Noon is the one looking confused. "No, she was with you. Fair skin, around 8 or 9 years old, wearing yellow duck pajamas, long hair, pigtails." The man goes quiet for a moment. Then he calls his wife out from inside and asks Noon to tell her what she saw. The wife listens, and as Noon describes the girl's face and height, The woman suddenly starts tearing up. Then she just breaks down crying. Through her sobs, she says she had a miscarriage about 8 years ago. They always imagined that if the baby had lived, she'd be around that age by now. In Thai belief, Noon explains, when someone dies before their destined time, their spirit doesn't cross over right away. It stays in our world and continues to age year by year, like it's still living the life it was supposed to have. Only when it reaches the age it was meant to live can it finally move on. So in that moment, the mom is convinced. The girl Noon saw might have been the child she never got to meet. Now, Art hears all this but doesn't really believe it. He's more focused on the battery, tightening screws and checking the terminals. The dad, maybe trying to prove that there's a logical explanation, calls his actual daughter downstairs. Luke, loma noi de mai? Sweetie, can you come down for a second? A girl comes down the stairs, maybe 6 years old, darker skin from playing sports, short hair, wearing a school uniform. She looks nothing like the girl Noon saw. At this point, Noon is just confused. Did she imagine everything? Art finishes installing the battery. The owner tells them, "Wait here. I'll go inside and get the money." So they wait. 5 minutes pass. Then 10. Then 15. Noon starts feeling uneasy. The TV is still on. They can still hear faint sounds inside the house, but no one comes out. She and Art keep exchanging glances like, what's taking so long? And then Noon sees it. From where she's standing, she can see the bottom part of the staircase through the open door. Slowly, she notices a small pair of feet coming down each step. Bare feet. As the figure comes into view, she sees yellow duck pajamas. It's the same girl from the shop. The little girl steps into the doorway, looks straight at them, and cheerfully calls out, "Ow, young mới set igluk, huh?" "Oh, you haven't finished changing the battery yet?" Noon, stunned, manages to answer, "Riep roi lo ka, ra kun pa ongun ma hai." "We're done already, just waiting for your dad to bring the money." The girl nods. "Dio nu bei bok pa hai na ka?" "I'll go tell my dad." Then she turns around and walks back inside. Noon and Art just stand there, frozen. Art suddenly says, very firmly, "Bye, glap ran kan lui." "Let's go. We're going back to the shop." Noon starts to protest. "But the money." "Bai ton ni lui." Now. There's something in his voice that makes her listen. She climbs back onto the bike. As they pull out of the driveway, Noon, still confused, instinctively turns her head to look back. Art snaps, louder this time. "Ya han bei mong." Don't look back. But you know how it is. When someone tells you not to look, you want to look even more. So she does. And what she sees nearly makes her lose her grip on the battery. The lively neighborhood from earlier is gone. The house they were just at, the open gate, the warm lights, the sound of TV, the smell of breakfast, replaced by a locked, rusting gate, windows coated in thick dust, dead leaves piled up in corners, vines crawling up the walls of every house. The entire street looks like it's been abandoned for years. No lights, no sound, no people. Just an empty, forgotten street. They ride back to the shop in silence. As soon as they arrive, Noon calls one of her close friends who knows that area well. She asks, "Hey, what's going on with that old gated neighborhood near? We were just there." Her friend responds, "That place? That street's been empty for a long time already. No one lives there anymore. Why?" That night, Noon and Art talk about it over and over again. Art, being practical, says one thing though. Ghost or not, I'm not giving away a brand new battery. When they return to the entrance of the neighborhood, the main gate is now closed, and there's a big sign hanging there. Hamkao. Do not enter. That sign definitely wasn't there in the morning. They look at each other. Art shrugs, the way Thai uncles do when they've already decided. He squeezes the motorbike through a side gap and drives in anyway. They ride slowly down the same street. In daylight, it's even clearer. The whole area is abandoned. Houses are dusty, gardens overgrown. No curtains, no movement, no signs of life. When they reach the same house, the gate is locked with a chain. The driveway is covered in weeds. There's no white sedan, no sound, no TV, just silence. Art climbs over the gate while Noon waits outside, peeking through the bars. A minute later, he calls out, "Noon, look over there." She stands on her tiptoes and sees it. Lying on the ground near where the car used to be, half buried in tall grass, is a battery box. In it is the same new battery she'd been holding earlier. Art swears he installed that battery into the white car that morning. But now, the car is gone, and the battery is back on the ground like it was never used. He grabs it, climbs back over, and they head home without saying much. Later, after asking around even more, they learn the full story. There used to be a family in that house. A mom, dad, and a young daughter. One morning, on the way to take their daughter to school, they were in a car accident. All three of them died. Not long after, neighbors started reporting strange things. Lights turning on by themselves. TV sounds at odd hours. The faint noise of people talking or cooking. Like the family was still there, living out their usual routine. One by one, the people living nearby got scared and moved away. Houses went up for sale. Eventually, that whole stretch of the neighborhood was abandoned. Somewhere in that timeline, whether before the accident or after, the father had brought a car to Noon and Art's shop to change a battery. And now, it's like he came back for another one. So was that customer in the morning really human? Was that little girl really the child that never got to be born? Were they somehow stuck in a loop, still doing everyday things like sending kids to school and changing car batteries? Noon told me, "I don't think they even know they're dead. It's like they're just continuing." And then she laughed a little and said, "Well, at least we know one thing. If even ghosts come back for a battery change, our shop service must be really good." I don't mean it in a heavy way, more like, do you ever feel that some people don't quite leave, even when their bodies do? That maybe they're just next door, in a place we can't see yet. My name's Noi. and I run a small car battery shop with my husband, Tung, out in Pathamtani. It's a simple place. Metal shutters, the smell of rubber and engine oil, and a lazy brown Thai bang cow dog named Milo who thinks he owns the street. This happened a few years ago, and it still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. That morning, it was around 6:30 a.m. The shop wasn't officially open yet, but the locals know that if the front lights are on, they can knock. Tun was in the back making coffee, and I was sweeping the floor, half awake. A silver SUV pulled up in front of the shop. I recognized it right away. We'd seen that car plenty of times before, regular customer. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, neatly dressed, like he was on his way to work. He greeted me politely and then walked over to Tun. He said he needed a new battery, not for this car, but for another one parked at his house. He asked if we could bring the battery over and change it there, because he needed to drop his daughter at school soon. While they were talking, the back door of the SUV opened. Out stepped this little girl, maybe around 9 or 10 years old, wearing light blue cartoon pajamas with big yellow ducks on them. Her hair was tied into 2 small pigtails. She didn't say anything, just walked straight past me to where Milo was dozing by the doorway. Milo is usually picky about strangers, but with her, he wagged his tail and rolled over like they were old friends. I smiled and said, "Nong, you can come play with him inside if you want. The floor's cleaner in here." She glanced at me, smiled a little, and said, "It's okay, I like it here," without even looking up from scratching Milo's neck. A few minutes later, the man turned to us and said, "All right, follow me to the house in about 10 minutes. I'll just take my daughter to school first." The girl stood up, gave Milo one last pat, and climbed back into the SUV. The man nodded at me, got in, and they drove off like everything was perfectly normal. Tun loaded a new battery into the box and tied it to the back of our motorbike. I climbed on behind him and held the battery steady on my lap. The ride to the customer's place was short, maybe 7 minutes at most. It was an old housing estate, the kind with fading signs and a security booth that looked more decorative than functional. The front gate was wide open. There was a guard inside the booth, but he didn't even look up when we passed. Just sat there, radio playing softly. We followed the directions the man had given us and stopped in front of his house. The lights inside were on. I could hear a TV playing some morning show. There were sounds from the kitchen, plates clinking, someone moving around, the faint smell of garlic being fried for breakfast. It felt like any other Thai family morning. The front door opened, and the same man stepped out, now without his car keys in hand. He greeted us again and led Tun toward a white sedan parked in the driveway. While Tun started swapping out the old battery, I stood closer to the doorway, chatting politely like we usually do with customers. I said, "Your daughter is so cute, by the way. She really likes dogs, huh?" He frowned a little. "My daughter?" "Yes," I said, a bit confused. "The girl in duck print pajamas who played with my dog at the shop just now." He stared at me for a moment, like he was trying to decide if I was joking. "I went to your shop alone," he said slowly. I laughed awkwardly. "No, really. She came out of your car. Light blue pajamas, yellow ducks, pigtails. Fair skin. She looked about 10. He went very still. "My daughter is 7, he said. "She has darker skin. She's in athletics. She's always out in the sun. And she wore her school uniform this morning." She came out, wiping her hands on a dishcloth, and he asked me to repeat what I'd seen. So I did. The car, the pajamas, the way she played with Milo. As I described the girl, fair skin, About 10. Duck pajamas. I saw the wife's eyes start to fill with tears. Then she started crying. Not loud, just this deep, quiet kind of crying that makes your chest hurt when you hear it. She told me that about 10 years ago, she'd had a miscarriage. They had been expecting a daughter. In Thai belief, when someone dies before their destined time, their spirit doesn't move on right away. It stays in our world, growing older as the years pass, until it reaches the age it was meant to live. Only then can it finally leave. So to her, what I described sounded exactly like the daughter she never got to meet. Ton, of course, is the practical type. While all this was happening, he was still focused on the battery. I could tell from his face he didn't really believe any of it. The husband must have noticed, because he said, "Wait here. I'll call my daughter down so you can see for yourself." A moment later, a girl came down the stairs. She was wearing a school uniform, skin tanned from playing sports, hair in a messy ponytail. She smiled politely at us, but she looked nothing like the girl in the pajamas. Tun shot me a look like, "See? You must have been mistaken." I didn't argue. I wasn't sure what to think myself. After Tun finished changing the battery, the husband told us to wait while he went inside to get the money. So we waited by the bike. No big deal. Happens all the time. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. You know when a normal wait starts to feel wrong? Like time is stretching a bit too much? Tun and I looked at each other. He shrugged, but I could see he was getting uncomfortable too. The house was still, but the TV was no longer audible. I couldn't hear the kitchen sounds anymore. It was just quiet. Then, from inside the house, I heard the soft thump, thump, thump of small footsteps on wooden stairs. A pair of small feet appeared at the top of the staircase, and then she stepped into view. The same girl. Same light blue pajamas with yellow ducks, same pigtails, same calm face. She walked down the stairs like she'd done it every morning of her life. She slid open the front door and looked straight at us. "Oh, you haven't finished changing the battery yet?" she called out, sounding surprised. My heart dropped into my stomach. "The battery's done already," I managed to say. "We're just waiting for your dad to bring the money." She tilted her head, as if thinking, then said, "I'll tell him," and turned around, walking back into the house. The door closed behind her. I just stood there, frozen. Tun inhaled sharply and said, very quietly, but firmly, "Noi, let's go." I blinked at him. "What about the money?" "We'll figure it out later," he said. Then more urgently, "Now, Noi." There was something in his voice that made me obey without another word. I climbed onto the bike, and he started the engine. As we rolled away, curiosity clawed at me. I wanted just one more look, just to see the house, the windows. Anything to prove that what I'd seen was real. I turned my head. "Noi, don't look back," Tun snapped. But of course I did. And what I saw still makes my hands shake when I talk about it. The lively street we'd driven into less than an hour ago. Warm lights, faint TV sounds, the smell of cooking, was gone. Every house on that stretch looked abandoned. Windows dark, paint peeling, balconies choked with vines. dry brown leaves piled up along the sides of the road. You know how dust looks when it's been collecting for years? Like a dull gray film over everything? It was like that. The house we had just been standing in front of looked empty. Like no one had lived there in a very long time. I whipped my head back around and grabbed onto Tun more tightly. Neither of us said a word the whole ride back. She went quiet for a second, then said, "Noi, that street's been empty for a while now. No one lives there. Didn't you know?" I didn't sleep well that night. Now, you'd think the story ends there, right? But my husband, practical, stubborn Tone, was not about to give away a brand new battery for free. Ghosts or no ghosts. Around 11 a.m., when the sun was higher and the world felt normal again, he said, "Let's go get the battery. I want to see that place one more time. Properly." Honestly, I didn't want to go. But I also didn't want him to go alone. So we rode back. This time, when we reached the entrance of the housing estate, the front gate was closed. There was a big, newly painted sign hanging there. "Do not enter." I swear to you, that sign was not there earlier that morning. The guard from before was nowhere to be seen. Tone stared at the gate for a moment, then looked at me. I could tell what he was thinking. I sighed and said, "Just be quick." He pushed the gate open enough for the bike to slip through, and we rode back to the same street. In the late morning sun, there was no way to pretend anymore. The whole place was clearly abandoned. Empty houses, overgrown yards, rusted gates. No sounds, no movement. Just the buzz of insects. When we got to the house, the gate was locked with a heavy chain. The yard inside was wild with weeds and tall grass. The windows were dusty and dark. No lights, no TV, no smell of breakfast, just silence. Tone climbed over the gate while I stayed outside, gripping the bars. He disappeared around the side of the house for a moment. Then I heard him call my name. I stood on my toes, peeking over the gate. There, in the middle of the overgrown grass near the driveway, was our battery box, half buried in green. The flaps were still open. The new battery was back inside, like someone had carefully placed it there. The white sedan we'd worked on earlier, completely gone. Not even tire marks. "But you installed it already," I said, my voice shaking. "I did," Tone replied. "I tightened it myself." He didn't waste another second. He grabbed the battery, hoisted it up, climbed back over the gate, and we left that place without looking back. Later, after asking around more carefully, we heard the rest of the story. There had been a family living in that house years ago, a father, mother, and a little girl. One morning, while driving their daughter to school, they got into a serious accident. None of them survived. Not long after the funeral, neighbors started noticing strange things. Lights turning on in the house at night, the TV flickering, the sound of people talking, of cutlery clinking, of a child laughing. Curtains moving when no one lived there anymore. Some neighbors tried to ignore it, others couldn't. One by one, people on that stretch of road put their houses up for sale. Eventually, the whole area became known as a place people avoided. I had heard rumors, but I never connected them to that particular house. Until that day. So, Was the man who came to our shop that morning really alive? Was the girl in the duck pajamas just my imagination? I don't have a clear answer for you. But I remember how Milo's tail wagged when she played with him. I remember the weight of the battery on my legs as we rode into that estate. I remember the smell of garlic from their kitchen and the way the wife cried when I described the girl I saw. And I remember that when I looked back at that street, it was nothing but dust, dead leaves, and empty houses. I'll tell you this, though. Ever since that day, when I open the shop in the early morning and I hear little footsteps, or feel like someone small is standing just out of sight by the doorway, I always look down first, just in case there's a girl in blue duck pajamas waiting to play with Milo again. You know, every time I tell this story, I still get goosebumps. I heard it from a senior of mine back in college. Let's call her Mai. She used to work as a babysitter in Bangkok during the Asian financial crisis, around 1998. Her family's small garment shop had gone under almost overnight, so she was desperate for any job she could find. That's how she ended up working for this well-off Malaysian family, living in a quiet seaside neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Just 3 of them in the house: the mom, the dad, and their little girl, a 3-year-old named Aaliyah. Aaliyah, from the first day, was this tiny, clingy kid, super attached to her mom, always jumpy at small sounds, scared of strangers. But the house itself, honestly, Mai said it felt normal, calm even. 2 floors, lots of windows, a view of the water. She'd go in the morning, play with Aaliyah, feed her, clean up a bit, then clock out around 5 in the afternoon. Routine, quiet, nothing strange. For about a month. One day, the mom told Mai, "I'll be home late today. Can you stay a bit longer?" Extra pay, of course. And since Mai needed the money, she said yes right away. That evening, as the sun was going down, Aaliyah started getting really cranky. Whiny, clingy, just not herself. Mai assumes she was hungry or sleepy, so she went to the kitchen to warm some milk. She's there stirring the pot, half tired, half zoning out, when suddenly, Aaliyah screams. Like, full-on terrified scream. Mai drops everything and runs back to the living room. And Aaliyah is gone. Now, imagine that. You're responsible for someone else's child, and she disappears in the span of a minute. Mai said her heart just dropped, but she tried to stay logical. Aaliyah's only 3. She can't have gone far. So Mai starts searching the ground floor, calling her name, checking under tables, in the bathroom, everywhere. And then she hears it. Soft giggling from upstairs. She said it was that kind of giggle that kids do when they're playing with someone they really like. Except there was no one else in the house. Mai runs up the stairs, follows the sound, and it leads her to the master bedroom. The door is slightly open. She pushes it gently, and there, on the bed, is Aaliyah, sitting cross-legged, laughing, and poking at a doll. Mai feels this wave of relief. She's just glad the kid is okay. But as she walks closer, something about the doll hits her as wrong. It's about the size of a Barbie, but it doesn't look like any doll you'd see in a toy store. The skin looks too real. The hair is long and dark, like actual human hair. And then she notices the doll has fingernails and toenails. Not painted on plastic ones, actual little nails protruding out of its tiny fingers and toes. And when the light hits its face, she sees sharp, tiny fangs in its mouth. Mai told me, the moment I saw that thing, my stomach turned. It didn't feel like a toy. It felt like something that was watching. But at that moment, the doll was the least of her worries. She just wanted Aaliyah away from it. So she reaches out to pick Aaliyah up, and the kid suddenly screams. Blood starts dripping from one of Aaliyah's fingers. She's wailing now, holding her hand, and Mai is panicking, trying to see where the cut is, trying to calm her down. To make things worse, the house phone rings. It's the mom. She hears Aaliyah crying in the background and immediately asks, "What happened? What's wrong?" Mai, still in shock, can only say, "She's bleeding. Her finger is bleeding." The parents rush home soon after. Mai explains everything that happened and hands the doll over to the mom, thinking maybe it belongs to them. She goes pale, then furious. She turns to her husband and starts yelling at him. He snaps back, and suddenly they're both shouting at each other in a mix of Malay and Indonesian that Mai can't fully follow. She can tell one thing, though. Whatever that doll is, the mom did not want it near her daughter. Later, Mai would realize that night was when the hauntings really began. After that, the atmosphere in the house changed. Mai said she never felt alone, even when it was just her and Aaliyah. She'd be playing with the kid on the floor and feel this pressure, like someone was standing behind her, watching. Sometimes, out of the corner of her eye, she'd see a tall, shadowy figure at the end of the hallway. But when she turned to look directly, nothing was there. In the kitchen, while washing dishes, she'd hear faint whispers, soft, rhythmic, like someone reciting prayers in a language she didn't understand. There were no phones on, no radio, no TV. Just her and a 3-year-old. But the voices kept coming and going. This went on for months. By the 5th or 6th month, Mai had had enough. She needed the money, but she was worn down, exhausted from being scared all the time. She finally opened up to a close friend about it and told her, "I'm going to quit. I can't do this anymore." Her friend, trying to be supportive, said, "Okay, let me come over once. I'll keep you company, then you decide." A few days later, on a day when both parents were supposed to be out, Mai's friend came by. Mai opened the gate and greeted her, all relieved to finally have someone there with her. The first thing her friend says is, "Oh, I thought you said no one was home." Mai frowns. "Yeah, they're not. Just me and Aaliyah." Her friend looks up at the house, confused, and asks, "Then, who's that woman on the 2nd floor?" "The one with long hair, standing near the window." Mai turns around immediately. The window is empty. She tells her friend to stop joking. It's not funny. Then she pulls her inside the house. As soon as her friend steps in, she covers her nose and winces. "What's that smell? It's like something dead. Mai smells nothing. To her, the house is just the same as always. No weird odor, nothing. She laughs it off nervously and says, "Seriously, I don't smell anything. Come sit in the living room. I'll get you something to snack on." So Mai goes to the kitchen for a few minutes, and then she hears a scream. Not from Aaliyah, from her friend. She drops what she's doing and runs to the living room, just in time to see her friend bolting straight out the front door and through the gate, like she's running for her life. Mai chases after her, shouting, "What happened? What's wrong?" Her friend, shaking and out of breath, yells into the phone when Mai calls her. "That woman I saw upstairs, she came down. She was naked, and she tried to stab me." Mai thinks she's lost it. "What are you talking about? I told you, no one is here." Her friend insists, voice cracking, "I'm not making this up. She ran at me, Mai. Hair down to her waist, eyes wide, like she wanted to kill me." After that, Mai said, it stopped being just weird or uncomfortable. It became terrifying. But still, she kept quiet. Who could she tell? Who would believe her? She tried to keep going, pretending everything was normal, until the incident that finally made her walk away. It was an ordinary afternoon. The mom was out, and Mai was doing her usual babysitting with Aaliyah. The dad, who was usually more like a ghost than any actual spirit, always working, barely talking to his daughter, was home that day. But that day, out of nowhere, he picks up Aaliyah and carries her upstairs. Mai finds it strange, but she doesn't say anything. She's in the living room tidying up when suddenly she hears Aaliyah scream again. This time, it's different. Louder. More desperate. Mai runs upstairs and finds Aaliyah standing there, both hands covered in blood. Not just one little cut on a finger, both hands, palms and fingers, bleeding. Drops of blood on the floorboards. The dad is standing a few steps away, just staring at his daughter. Not rushing to help, not comforting her, just watching. Mai rushes in, grabs Aaliyah, and tries to stop the bleeding. She's shaking, trying to figure out what happened, what cut her this badly. She calls the mom immediately. When the mom gets home, she and the dad go into their room to talk, and Mai overhears bits of it. The dad says it was an accident, that Aaliyah was playing with a knife and hurt herself. The mom doesn't buy it. You can hear it in her voice, the disbelief, the anger. They start arguing again, and Mai realizes something. Whatever is wrong in this house, it's not just the haunted part. It's the people. That night, she tells the mom she wants to quit. The mom breaks down crying. She begs Mai to listen to her first, says she needs to tell someone what's really going on, because she can't talk to anyone else. The family has a reputation. Her husband is a respected businessman, and no one would understand. So, she confides in Mai. She tells her that her husband is deeply involved in black magic and witchcraft. Not just a bit superstitious, full-on rituals, amulets, offerings. And that strange doll Mai saw, it's called a jenglot. The mom explains that people believe a jenglot has a spirit or ghost bound to it. It's treated like a charm or an amulet, supposedly bringing power, protection, or success. But it doesn't come for free. To take care of a jenglot, you have to feed it blood. And the bigger your wish, the bigger the sacrifice. Her husband, she says, believes that the purer the blood, the more powerful the result. Children's blood, especially from his own child, he sees as the ultimate offering for his business deals and ambitions. Mai feels sick hearing this. Suddenly, so many things click into place. Aaliyah's constant fear, the way she only truly relaxed around her mom, the random injuries, always brushed off as accidents, her friends seeing the woman with long hair, reeking of decay, charging at her, the whispers, the shadows. The mom says she found out about the jenglot and the rituals long ago, but she's trapped by culture, by family pressure, by fear of what her husband might do if she exposed him. She stays for her daughter, hoping she can protect her at least a little. Mai listens, heart pounding, hands cold, and that's when she makes her decision. She hugs the mom, apologizes, and tells her she really, truly cannot stay any longer. The spirits, the blood, the lies. It's too much. She says goodbye to Aaliyah, who clings to her one last time, confused but strangely quiet. Mai walks out of that house and never goes back. When she finished telling me this story, she went silent for a while. Then she said, "I still think about that little girl. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder if she ever got away from all that." And honestly, same. Because at the end of the day, all the ghosts and creepy dolls and black magic aside, the scariest part of this story isn't the jenglot. It's a father who could hurt his own child and call it sacrifice. She was only 3. Some people should never be allowed to have that kind of power over a helpless kid. You know, it's funny. When people ask me about the worst place I ever pulled a shift, they expect a war story. Explosions, firefights, something like that. But the place that really stuck to me, got inside my head, was quiet. We called it Post 9. It was way up north, farther than any map made it feel. Just a little listening station, buried in snow and bad decisions. Nothing around us but wind, drifts, and this kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt heavy, like it pressed against your skin. Nights there didn't really end. The sky just went from black to a slightly different black. The fluorescent lights in the barracks buzzed non-stop, one long, nervous note, and the walls always felt damp and cold, like they were sweating from the inside. My bunk was against the far wall, right under a cracked strip of paint. I remember that detail for some reason, that crack. I used to stare at it when I couldn't sleep. Anyway, one night, the wall above my head starts making this sound. At first I think, pipes. Old bass, shoddy repairs. Everything rattles when the wind decides to howl. Maybe mice, maybe the woods settling in the cold. You can explain away anything at the start, you know? But this wasn't just creaking or tapping. It was shaping itself into something. Into my name. I'm lying there, eyes closed, almost asleep, and I hear it, right over my head, this breathy little murmur, pulling my name out of the plaster. I froze. I remember feeling my heartbeat in my teeth. I waited, holding my breath so I didn't make a sound, but it didn't come again. Just the buzz of the light and the wind outside. Next night, though, It comes back, clearer, closer. This time it doesn't just say my name. After it whispers that, it says, "Open it." I sit up so fast I almost fall out of the bunk. I can see my breath in the air, like steam from a kettle. Everything is quiet, but that kind of quiet that feels like someone's listening. So I whisper back, because of course I do. I say, "Who's there?" Nothing. Just the light flickering a little, doing that nervous blink it used to do when the generator was thinking about quitting. And then I hear, "I'm inside." So soft I almost think I imagined it. But I didn't. I knew I didn't. It had weight. You ever notice that? Some sounds have weight. They push the air a little different, like you can feel them on your ear, not just hear them. I told myself it was isolation. Too many nights without real sleep. You start to hear patterns in the static, voices in the fans. That's normal, right? But I pressed my palm flat against the wall above my head, and I swear to you, there was something behind it. Not moving much, just breathing. By the third night, I'd talked myself into and out of believing it maybe 100 times. I told myself I wouldn't do anything stupid. I'd ignore it, put in earplugs, pray the generator would die so the whole place would go dark and force everyone to move. But that whisper kept coming. Little things. My name. Open it. Sometimes just this slow, drawn-out breathing, like someone on the other side was trying not to cough. So that night, I snapped. I waited until my bunkmate, Malik, solid guy, never asked too many questions, was out on watch. Base was dead quiet. Just me, the humming light, and the sound in the wall. I grabbed my multi-tool, little thing with a short blade, and I started cutting into the paneling above my bed. I made this narrow opening and reached my hand in. It was colder inside the wall than it was in the room. Still air, dry, completely empty. No pipes, no nest. No hidden crawl space, just hollow space between boards. I remember feeling this mix of relief and embarrassment, I guess. Like I'd just proved to myself how badly I'd been spooked. And then, from behind me, right by the door, a voice said, "Too late. I'm not inside anymore." I went cold all over, not just scared, emptied out. I turned around so fast I banged my shoulder on the bunk. No one was there. The barracks were empty. Every bed in perfect military order. Lockers shut. The light flickered once, then again, then steadied like nothing had happened. I dropped the multi-tool. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't even pick it back up. And then, right beside my ear, as close as if someone was leaning over my shoulder, I heard a whisper. Same words as before, same tone. But this time, it was my voice. Go back to sleep. I don't remember lying down. I don't remember closing my eyes. It's like that part got cut out of the film. When I woke up, everything was normal. The wall above my bunk, perfect, not a scratch, no cut, no crack bigger than the one I'd stared at 1,000 nights before. My multi-tool was gone, but my hands were raw. Little cuts across my palms and fingers like I'd been digging through something sharp. dried blood under my nails. Malik came in from his shift, walked past my bunk, and just stopped. Looked at me. His face was pale in that washed-out light, and his eyes had this far-away, hollow look, like he'd seen something he was still trying to pretend he hadn't. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, just from the way he looked at me, I knew. He'd heard it too. Maybe not my voice, maybe not from my wall, but something had spoken to him as well. After that, the whisper stopped calling my name. It didn't tell me to open anything. It didn't breathe in the wall above my head. In some ways, that was worse. Because instead of hearing it, I started feeling it. You know when you're falling asleep and your body jerks because your brain thinks you tripped? It was like that, but inside. Every time I breathed in, there was this drag. Like something was adjusting itself under my ribs, making room. When I closed my eyes, I could feel a stare. Not from the corner of the room or from the doorway, but from right behind my own face. Like something had climbed out of that wall and just stepped into me. And then, a few weeks later, a new kid got assigned to our barracks. Fresh uniform, boots still too stiff. That hopeful look in his eyes you only see on the first week. He took the bunk 2 down from mine. Didn't complain about the cold. Said the silence was peaceful. Yeah. First or second night, I'm lying there, pretending to be asleep, and I hear him whispering to the wall by his bed. Just a soft, uncertain, almost embarrassed whisper. "Hey, you there?" And from the way the air shifted, from the way he stopped breathing for a second, I knew it had answered. I never heard what it said to him. Didn't need to. See, I think that's how it works, how it spreads. One by one. It talks to you long enough that you open something. Wall, door, yourself. Doesn't really matter. It gets in. And once it's in, it uses you to reach the next guy. And the next. And the next. Post 9 stopped feeling like a place to me after that. It felt like a mouth. A big, quiet mouth, buried in the snow, just waiting for the next man to lie down and put his head near the wall. Every person who sleeps there for long enough, we all end up speaking for it, one way or another. If you hear a voice in the wall calling you, don't listen. If it asks you to answer, don't. And whatever you do, don't cut into the wall. So, hey, I've never really told this whole story out loud like this before. I shared bits of it with my Aunt Rosa and my cousin Mia a long time ago. But lately it's been on my mind, and I kind of feel like maybe it's time to actually talk about it. This happened when I was about 14 years old. I was walking home from my friend Lena's house. She lived maybe 1.5 miles away from me, on the outskirts of our little town. Not quite full countryside, but still pretty quiet. I'd walked that route a bunch of times, even at night. Nothing weird ever happened. It was the kind of area where you know every bump in the road, every fence post, every porch light. That night, it was late, around 12:30 a.m. or so. I had one earbud in, music playing low, just kind of zoned out and walking like I usually did. And then, out of nowhere, this awful feeling hit me. It was like my body realized something was wrong before my brain did. My chest tightened, My skin went cold, and I suddenly felt like I wasn't alone anymore. Not in a maybe someone's around way, but in a something is watching you way. My feet actually stopped moving on their own. I pulled my earbud out and just stood there on the side of the road, listening. It was so quiet. No cars, no dogs barking, just my own breathing. I looked out to the side of the road, over this stretch of empty field that I'd passed 100 times. And that's when I saw it. There was this shape, a shadow figure standing out in the field. Not near a tree, not by a fence, just there, by itself. When I noticed it, it was already facing my direction, like it had been watching me the entire time. When its head turned a little, like it was really locking eyes with me, my whole body went numb. It was tall and dark and wrong. That's the only way I can explain it. Almost like those internet stories about Slender Man, but not exactly. It didn't have a clear face. It was more like a human-shaped hole cut out of the world. Like all the light around it just disappeared. I don't know how long I stared at it, but at some point it tilted its head, just a tiny bit, and then it started running straight at me. I have never felt fear like that in my life. Every instinct in me just screamed, run. So I did. I turned and ran as fast as I could, full sprint down that road. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, louder than my own footsteps. I didn't dare look back, not even once. I was convinced that if I looked, it would be right behind me. By the time I reached my house, I was completely out of breath. Shaking so badly, my hands could barely get the key in the door. I slammed it behind me, locked everything, and just stood there in the hallway, trying not to cry. That night, I couldn't sleep. At all. I turned on my bedroom light, then my lamp, then even the little fairy lights I had on my wall. Like layers of safety that didn't really do anything. I sat on my bed with my back against the wall, knees up, just waiting for the sun to come up. At some point, though, my body must have given in, because I did fall asleep. And that's when the dream started. In the dream, everything felt normal at first. I was hanging out in the park with some friends from school, just talking and messing around. Then these two kids, a boy and a girl, maybe 8 or 9, walked up to us. They looked a little shy, and the boy said, "Can you help us? Our grandma fell, and we can't lift her." We went inside, and everything felt heavy. The air, the silence, all of it. The kids walked me into a living room where this figure was sitting in a chair facing away from us. I assumed that was their grandma. I said, "Hi, are you okay?" and took a step forward. The two kids moved to either side of me. When I glanced at them, they were smiling in this way that didn't match their eyes at all. Then their grandma started to move. She stood up slowly, her back still to me, and as she turned around, she wasn't a grandma at all. She was that same shadow figure from the field. Same height, same emptiness, same feeling like the world around her was being swallowed. I remember this horrible wave of recognition hitting me. Oh my God, it followed me. I turned and ran. The house suddenly felt like a maze, hallways stretching too long, doors that didn't lead anywhere. I was sprinting, heart racing, and somewhere in the middle of that panic I thought, wait, this is a dream. I just have to wake up. And I did. I snapped awake in my bed. Except, I couldn't move. I was on my back, eyes wide open, staring at my ceiling, and my whole body was frozen. I tried to lift my arm. Nothing. I tried to turn my head. Nothing. Then I realized I couldn't breathe properly either. It felt like something heavy was sitting on my chest, pressing down, squeezing the air out of me. Like hands around my throat that I couldn't see. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. It was pure terror. My lungs were burning, my mind was panicking, and I kept thinking, this is it. This is how I die. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. I could move again, but the second I caught my breath, I was back in the dream, still running through that house. This happened twice. Wake up, can't move, can't breathe, something choking me. Then snap back into the dream. By the third time, when I finally woke up for real, I sat straight up in bed, gasping, sobbing, clutching my chest. My throat hurt like I'd been crying or screaming for hours. With my asthma on top of it, it felt so real, I honestly wasn't sure if I had actually been choking. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and texted my cousin Mia, even though it was the middle of the night. I just poured everything out in these long, panicky messages. The shadow in the field, the dream, the choking, all of it. She stayed up with me, messaging back and trying to calm me down. She even tried looking things up online, sleep paralysis, shadow people, whatever she could find. Back then, there wasn't as much info around, and nothing she found made me feel much better. But it helped just knowing someone was there with me. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But a few days later, little things started happening around the house. One night, I had a couple of friends over. We were watching a horror movie in my room, which is kind of ironic now. The lights were off, just the TV lighting up the room. We were all squished onto my bed under a blanket. Out of nowhere, my curtains started moving. Not like a little flutter either. They began swinging, like someone had grabbed them and yanked them side to side. I felt that same cold fear in my chest, the feeling of being watched. My friends noticed it too. One of them laughed nervously and said, "You probably left the window open." So I got up to check, hoping that was it, because that would have been simple, right? But the window was closed. Completely. Locked. I remember turning back to them and seeing all their faces change when they realized it wasn't just a draft. The joking stopped. The room got really quiet, except for the movie. Then, as we were all just staring at each other, something else happened. Suddenly, one of the letters, the O from home, dropped to the floor. Just that one. No others moved. We all jumped. A few seconds later, another letter fell. The M from the same word. It was like something was picking them off on purpose. My friends completely lost it at that point. They grabbed their stuff and were like, "Yeah, no, we're going home. right now. So they left, and I was just alone with whatever this was. After that, things get fuzzy. I honestly don't remember a lot from that time in my life. It's like my brain kind of blurred that whole period out. I know I went through a really rough patch, mentally and physically. I was exhausted all the time, anxious, dealing with a lot of heavy stuff I didn't fully understand back then. Sometimes I wonder if that thing, whatever it was, fed off of that. Off the fear, the stress, the sadness. It's a strange thought, but it's hard not to connect the two when I look back. I'd love to say it's definitely gone now, that I did something and it disappeared and everything's fine. But the truth is, I don't know. Most days, my life is normal. I sleep, I work, I laugh. I go about my day like everyone else. But every once in a while, especially when I'm alone at night, or I walk past an empty field, I'll get this tiny prickle on the back of my neck. That familiar feeling of being watched. Not always, just sometimes. And I still have never walked down that same road at night again. So yeah, that's my story. I don't know exactly what I saw, or what followed me into my dreams, or what knocked those letters off my wall. Maybe it was all in my head. A mix of fear and sleep paralysis and a rough time in my life. Maybe it was something else. All I know is, it felt real. And a part of me still feels like, somewhere just out of sight, it's still there. So, this happened back in August of 2023, just outside a small town in rural Pennsylvania. My mom has these friends, a couple named Mark and Elisa, and they asked if I could house sit for them while they took a trip up to Vermont. I was 24 then, and honestly, a quiet week in a big old house sounded kind of perfect. Free place to stay, some alone time, 2 cats to hang out with. Easy, yes. Their place was one of those older homes that somehow feels bigger on the inside than it looks from the street. You know the kind I mean. Narrow hallways, creaky wooden stairs, and more tiny doors and weird little closets than any house really needs. It had this faint smell of old books and laundry detergent, which was actually kind of comforting at first. The first few days were totally normal. I fed the cats, watered the plants, went to work during the day, and at night, I'd curl up on the couch and just binge Netflix or fall down YouTube rabbit holes. The cats, Milo and Pepper, followed me around like little shadows, then disappeared to sleep in the master bedroom once they got bored of me. On the 4th night, I was up late in the living room, on my laptop. It was quiet, just that low hum old houses have. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Upstairs. Not just random creaking, like actual footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Crossing from one side of the upstairs hallway to the other. My first thought was, okay, one of the cats definitely got shut in a room. The house isn't huge, so that seemed logical. I paused my show, went upstairs, and pushed open the master bedroom door. Both cats were there, curled up at the foot of the bed. dead asleep. I stood there for a second, trying to listen for anything else, but it was just silence. I told myself, old house, wood settles, it's fine. But the thing is, it really hadn't sounded like that random, uneven creaking. It genuinely sounded like someone walking. The next night was worse. I'd gone to bed around midnight, and sometime later, I checked the time afterward and it was around 3:20 a.m. I woke up to the sound of something dragging across the floor above me. It was that unmistakable sound of a chair being scraped across hardwood. Slow. Then a pause. Then another scrape. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was anything but what it sounded like. After a minute, I grabbed my phone and texted Mark and Elisa. Hey, random question. Does anyone else have a key to the house? Or do you have a neighbor who comes by sometimes? They replied pretty quickly for being on vacation. Nope, just you. Why? Everything okay? I told them I thought I heard something upstairs, but probably was just being paranoid. They sent back something like, old house, lots of noises. Don't worry. Which helped a little, but not that much. Then came the night before they were supposed to come home. I was in bed, scrolling on my phone with the light off, just the screen glowing in the dark. The TV downstairs was on really low. I do that sometimes so the house doesn't feel so quiet. That's when I heard whispering. Not the TV. Not the cats. Not a podcast accidentally playing. Whispering. It was coming from the hallway, just outside my door. At first, I froze because my brain was trying to file it under TV noise. But the TV was below me, and way too quiet for that. This was close. It sounded like two people standing just outside my room, talking softly. There were two voices. One sounded male, a little deeper and rougher. The other sounded female, softer, higher. They weren't arguing or anything. It was more like the low murmur of people trying not to wake someone up. I couldn't make out any actual words, just that soft, breathy tone of intimate whispering. Finally, I thought, okay, I have to at least look. So I used my phone as a flashlight, slid out of bed, and went to the door. The second my hand touched the doorknob, the whispering cut off. Just gone. I opened the door into this heavy, unnatural silence. The hallway was dark and empty. I checked every room upstairs. The guest room, the office, the bathroom. I even opened those weird little closet doors that look like secret passages in an old movie. Nothing. No windows open. No cool breeze. No sign that anything had been moved. The cats were asleep again, curled up together in the master bedroom like they hadn't heard a thing. The next day, I was honestly counting the hours until Mark and Elisa got home. When they finally came in, I helped them bring in their bags, did the usual small talk about their trip, and then, kind of jokingly, I said, "So, does your house, make a lot of noise at night?" I tried to keep it light, like I was just teasing them. Elisa's smile dropped immediately. She went completely pale and glanced over at Mark. He just sighed, like he already knew where this was going. She asked, "What did you hear?" I told them, still half laughing to keep myself from sounding dramatic. The footsteps, the sound of the chair dragging, and then the whispering in the hallway. 2 voices, a man and a woman. I even said, "I know it sounds ridiculous, but it honestly felt like somebody was standing right outside my door." Elisa's eyes got shiny, and she said, very quietly, "You heard them too?" That's when my stomach dropped. They told me that every single house sitter they'd had over the years had mentioned something. Hearing people talking upstairs, or someone pacing in the hallway at night. One person even left early because they were so freaked out. They'd had the place inspected for everything. Bad wiring, strange drafts, animals in the walls. Nothing. No structural issues, no raccoons, no loose pipes making weird sounds. Mark said he'd once tried to stay up all night in the hallway with the lights off, just sitting there, waiting to hear the voices. He heard footsteps a couple of times, but never saw anything. No shadows, no figures. Just that feeling of not being alone. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really believe in ghosts before this. I still don't know exactly what I believe now. I've stayed in plenty of old houses. Family cabins, older apartments, creaky rentals, and none of them ever felt like that house. There was this awareness to the sounds, if that makes sense. Like they weren't just random noises, they felt intentional. What sticks with me the most isn't even the footsteps or the dragging chair. It's those whispers. The way they sounded like they were right there, inches from the other side of my door, trying not to wake me. I couldn't tell you a single word they said. It was more the tone, the presence of it, like someone leaning in too close in the dark. So yeah, that's my house-sitting story. If you've ever experienced anything similar, especially in an older house, I'd honestly love to hear about it. Part of me really wants a logical explanation, like some super specific way sound travels in old homes that makes it seem like voices and footsteps. But another part of me is starting to accept that maybe there are some things we just don't have neat explanations for. Either way, I still think about that hallway sometimes, and I still sleep with my door all the way closed now.